Welcome back to the Defying the Odds podcast. Today we are grateful to have Sean McCarron on as a guest. We will explore Sean's story of growing up and playing basketball in BC against other high-level athletes. Join us on this journey as we learn how he defied the odds.
You grew up in Kitimat, which was like 5,000 people maybe? Pretty small.
At the time it was closer to 13,000.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, decent size. Yeah.
So it's a small coastal town in BC. You love basketball. You had ambitions of playing basketball. How did you even get started in basketball in a small community like that?
All right. I think knowing that I was coming on here to talk to you with hoops gave me a chance to kind of think back to how it did kind of start a little bit. And I think like a lot of kids, especially here in Whitehorse, it started with just a love of sport, right? And from grade 1 through to grade 7, when I quit, it was soccer that was the number one option. It was the sport that my single mother could afford. It was easy to ride a bike to. It gets you running. A lot of my friends played. And then as, kind of elementary, unfolded, my gym teacher, this guy, Jim Warnock, was a huge influence on me and a bunch of the boys and girls in our Catholic elementary school, and being the only Catholic school in Kitimat, one of I think 7 elementaries, that we took a lot of pride in our athletics and our academics. And so in grade 4 or 5 we had indoor soccer, and then in grade 6, 7 we had basketball. And that's when it started. It was grade 6, combined grades, being a rookie. And I still remember, being pushed to compete with, those other elementary schools that all represented different neighborhoods. We were lucky because we took from every neighborhood. We paid tuition. My mom paid tuition, and I think growing up, it started to build probably grade 6, 7, but it certainly wasn't something that came easy. I still remember one of the memories that I haven't thought about in 30 years really, was the Northern BC Catholic Championships in grade 7. And I still remember who the MVP was, and it certainly wasn't me. It was one of the best hockey players in town. Went through his kind of growth spurt. He was just a little more athletic than everyone. And William was a star, and this was a tournament in Prince Rupert, 2 hours away. Catholic schools from the north came to it, congregated, and we ended up winning. And this guy went on to play hockey at a decent level and gave up hoops in high school. And I just sort of continued to play. But at that point, it was all just for fun, right? Yeah. Until you hit high school, and high school became kind of another kind of leveling up, I'd say, in grade 8, 9. Yeah.
So is that when it kind of like started to become more competitive for you? Because you're a very fiery competitor, and you love to compete. So is that when
absolutely.
When it really started to pick up for you?
I think I was always competitive with friends and with soccer. And you would know, when you play a sport and then you start to have a little bit of success, it just kind of breeds more. And it was a confidence builder. It was I loved being pushed. I liked the responsibility of being, let's say, a scorer in soccer. But in grade 6, 7, it was more just being a kind of you're kind of a role player. No one was really that great a player at that age. Like, we didn't have anyone that really stood out. If you were a little bigger, a little faster, a little more coordinated, you were the best, right? And then grade 8, 9, especially grade 8 came along, and there was tryouts. There was tryouts. So it was competitive from day 1. You made the team if you were a top, I don't remember, 10 or 12. And a school of 1,200 was competitive. We had one high school in town. You wanted to make the A team. There wasn't there weren't 2 equal teams. It was you either A team or B team, and with cuts. So that grade 8 year there was no guarantee. And I still remember being nervous that I may not make this team. And so, in any case, grade 8 came along, and we did the best we could. The powerhouse in northern BC, and it still is Prince Rupert. So Rupert has a 30, 40-year tradition of winning, provincial titles and zone championships. And in grade 8, my only memory of grade 8, I don't even remember if I started most of the year. I wasn't even that guy. By the end of the year, I remember kind of being a starter, but definitely not, leading scorer or anything like that. It was having my tooth chipped by these Alaskans, and I could not believe how aggressive these Alaskans were. And it was a team from Ketchikan, and they had come to Prince Rupert, and this team was years beyond anything we'd ever seen before. And now living here and coaching against teams from Alaska, Haines, Skagway, it took years for us to beat Skagway in high school basketball, right? We'd send Arctic Winter Games teams there and lose. And so that was quite a rude awakening for a bunch of decent athletes from Kitimat trying to compete with number one Rupert. And then secondly, these little towns from Alaska that were phenomenal. And so that grade 8 summer was a big one because my high school coach could see at least my work ethic, and I had improved through the year, and he sent me to my first camp in BC. He sent me to Burnaby to BC school sports camp. One kid from all the biggest schools in BC were invited. There was about 75, 80 of us invited to this camp run by one of the premier high school coaches in the province, guy from Maple Ridge. Still remember his name, Ken Dockendorf. I think he's a Hall of Famer down there. And he sent me to this camp, my high school coach did, and I got a chance to see some of the best players in the province in like that summer before grade 9. And it was a huge turning point already, because I'd gone from sort of being a role player who could do a little bit of everything to all of a sudden getting a letter from BC School Sports telling me that I was going to hoop for 6-8 hours a day. You better be in shape for 5 days. We'll pick you at the airport. We'll drive you there. It was a $400 fee, which is nothing, but it was still a big deal for my mom to pay. But we had enough and saved for it, and it was an eye opener because there was a lot of talent at that camp. It wasn't necessarily the best in BC, because again, I wasn't the best in my high school at that point, but it was there were some kids that went on to compete at a high level that I knew over the next 4 years that I'd met in grade 8 that summer before grade 9. So that was kind of my introduction to like basketball at a slightly higher level than what I knew growing up to that point, for sure.
So then what happens? You come back, and then grade 9, and now you're just like full of everything. You know what the competition's like?
Yeah. So that when I came back, I had already I was hooked. Like I was hooked that summer. And I had already I knew the extra jogging I had to do, the number of shots I got up in preparation for that kind of late summer camp, midsummer camp. I knew probably in April, May that I was going to go. And so I spent a few months, training for it. And I came back in grade 9 and already started to notice that I was just I had a little bit better dribbling. I could make layups. Like that was it, right? At that age, I could make most of my layups. I had confidence with the ball. And there was another key aspect of grade 8 is that the best player in grade 12 at my high school was also a top player in BC at the time. So his grade 12 year, his name's Joel Maida, best player probably in the history of my high school. He made a Team BC in his grade 10 year, if I'm not mistaken. So he was already on the map. And here's a little sort of connection here with Whitehorse and Jeremy. You had on an early podcast. One of Jeremy's high school coaches was the senior boys coach at my high school in grade 8. So my high school coach, sorry, when I was in grade 8, the senior boys coach, Tony McCrory, went to Ladysmith to be their junior boys coach. And so Tony led Mount Elizabeth, my high school, to a 4th place finish in it would have been 85 or 86. And this is AAA, so highest level in BC. And so Joe Almeida was his point guard in grade 10, 11, and 12. And so Joe was the guy that I immediately looked up to in grade 8. So we'd pack the gym. You'd get 600-700 people in there to watch a rivalry game against Terrace or this Prince Rupert team. And Joe was a star. He could pass, he could shoot, beautiful mid-range. He had matching gold and black Nikes. And I remember thinking, this is the guy I want to be. So it was a combination of like having a coach that sent me to this camp, grade 8 being an amazing introduction to like high school sport, and then having this guy to really sort of try to emulate in the next few years. And it took me probably till not even in grade 12 could I really match up. He was still a dominant, even though he was already like 5 years after high school. And it was finally by sort of college I could match up and like kind of give it to him a little bit. But he was he was a huge reason. I forgot to mention one more little thing is I went to the Philippines before grade 8, and I mean, living in Whitehorse, basketball is a religion. And so my mother's Filipino, and she took us there. And that was another little bit of a piece of like everyone loving the sport, playing it every day. I was tall-ish for my age, but not tall. And I'm not tall now, but in the Philippines, I was a giant, for like 12 years old and 5'5" or whatever I might have been. And so that was another little piece of the puzzle, where the sport was it just sort of happened that I was sort of, initiated or just surrounded by this love of the game even before I entered high school. And that's when I became a Laker fan, actually. I became a Laker fan in 86, 87, and I chose a team that summer because it was I saw a lot of games replayed in the Philippines. That summer, they would replay games on one of the Filipino channels, and they played a lot of Magic games. My number is still number 4 now because of Byron Scott, shooting guard for LA back in the day. I still want that number if I have a choice. And so that grade 7, 8, 9 kind of 3-year span kind of set kind of built the foundations of my passion and love of the game. And then the working on the game kind of followed after kind of 9, 10. 9, 10 is kind of when it picked up a little bit.
So you're kind of like, I know you're very much a student of the game. You like to learn, you like to take stuff from other players. I'm curious if Joel was like the Joel player that we talked about. I don't want to try and pronounce the last name.
Almeida, Portuguese guy with a huge Portuguese population in Kinaman. And yeah.
Did you take anything from his game, like that you can think back now?
Yeah. So Joe, I'm trying to think who I would compare him to, sort of in Whitehorse.
Yeah.
And it's hard to, because he was a little short. He might have been 5. He certainly wasn't. He might have been 6 feet tall. The one thing that I never had that I think his confidence on the floor was probably the biggest thing. Is that when the ball was in his hands, and the game, because we used to have these home games, almost every week, or a tournament, and they'd invite teams in to play. And I remember some of the best teams in the province would fly up. I can't remember if it was Pitt Meadows or Maple Ridge or Richmond. One of these lower mainland AAA squads came up and actually did a tour of the north, because Caledonia has a strong tradition out of Terrace. Like I said, Rupert just sent like a 6, 8, or 9 kid to Utah, I think, last year. Yeah. And I think they won the BC provincial title maybe not last year with COVID, or maybe last year, the year before, I think they won the double A's again, and they sent this kid to the States on a scholarship. And in any case, these lower mainland teams would do a 3-town tour over a weekend. And so Joe just exuded confidence, and you felt like every time he shot the ball, it was going in. And I was invited in grade 8 and 9 to start playing pickup ball with the seniors. Again, I think they maybe not so much grade 8, it was more grade 9. And so I was invited to play pickup ball with the seniors in grade 9 for sure. And I remember I have one really fond memory that isn't necessarily answering your question, but another influence on me growing up. And I still tell the story to my guys. And I was invited to play pickup. And every Sunday from 1 o'clock till about 4, there would be 2 gym pickup. We had a small and a big gym like we do at Vanier, and on Thursdays at 8 o'clock, every Thursday there'd be a pickup. But you had to be invited by one of the main teachers, and I showed up. And the teacher in charge just couldn't play. He dealt with knee injuries. He was a little older and still a legend at the time. And there were only 3 other people at pickup. So I don't know what happened. It was a quiet night, and it might have been the summer now that I think of it. And so Joe Almeida had returned from UBC. And again, I'm fairly certain he had played his first year there at UBC. So he was there. There was a post player named Gary Reed, big Jamaican guy. One of my best friends, Sean, was his younger brother. And so he showed up, 6'4" post. I was there as a grade 9 rookie, just trying to get playing time. And there was a girl had shown up. And I was very grateful that maybe I got to guard, quote, the girl. And to this day, I don't think I've ever been owned on a basketball court as bad as I was by this girl that I eventually found out right after pickup ended that she was on a scholarship at the University of Oregon on full ride from my hometown. And I'd never met her because she was a little bit older, and she was on scholarship. She was a member of the junior national team from Mount Elizabeth, and her name was Isabel Marinchuk, Izzy Marinchuk for short. And it was a really cool lesson because I was already, sort of learning the game, and they invited me to play. And this Kitimat girl she was an Oregon Duck for 4 years at this school. I don't think she ever made the senior national women's team, but she had grown up playing basketball against all those senior boys. Her older brother was a great player too, and it was again another just reminder that there's another level to the game that you want to aspire to. And Isabel was she probably was the best player ever out of my high school, especially for female sport at that level. And I remember I didn't belong on the floor with those people, and it was kind of cool. And it's one of my favorite stories because I still remember it was 2-on-2, full court. For the first number they wanted to play 2-on-2 full court. And I'm like, I'm this grade 9 kid that didn't belong. I was I was there to pass the ball. And that was the rule when you're that age. It's just catch and pass. If you're open, shoot. But your job isn't to do much. And I'm sure you'll tell my son the same sort of thing when he plays pickup with the FH crew, is that you're just there to move the ball, get the ball to Ralph, get the ball to Liam, right? Andrew, and coach, and just don't make mistakes, but you don't have to make a ton of plays. And here I am playing 2-on-2 with 3 of the best players of that generation in my old high school. But I'd forgotten the original.
No, it's okay.
I got lost in that story. But I was surrounded in those. I guess it just reiterates that in those early formative years, I had many influences that helped kind of inspire me to just kind of play the game a lot and try to learn how to play it. Yeah.
No, you tied it in. That was the question. So you
Yeah,
just nailed
that
it.
was kind of the question, I think, and part of the question for
And
sure.
we're here for the McCarron experience anyways.
Yeah.
all
No,
the
I
great
love talking.
stories.
I love talking. The older you get, the more you like talking about those younger years.
Yeah.
But I tell those stories to many of my players because I kind of want them to recognize that they, right now in this town, there are amazing players that they can learn from. And, don't just play against a guy like Ralph. Like, learn from him, right? Don't just play, Kuwaitan from Porter Creek and what are they doing to outplay you? Especially if you're, in grade 8, 9, 10, these are the guys that you're going to hopefully one day, play and, play that role on your own team, when you get to that stage. And you don't have to go to the, House of Highlights on Instagram to learn how to play the game. You just have to kind of just look who's on the court with you, or from the stands. And I don't know if we're in the same place we were when I was young, but we really looked up to those older players, and there was a certain respect we had, even not even the grade 12s, the grade 10s. When I was in grade 8, I still remember looking up to the grade 10s and forget the grade 12s. You just wanted to kind of play at that level, let alone older. But they were a lot of fun memories for sure.
So since we're honest, and we're going to get this later, but you and I have talked numerous times about your Sunday night pickups and stuff like that. What's another good? Do you have another good story about your Sunday night?
About the Sunday afternoon.
The Sunday
game.
afternoon.
It was Sunday afternoon. It was
not night.
So I mean, Dave Thompson's from Kitimat. So Dave, Dave Thompson, Coach Thompson from Vanier. So. I don't necessarily have any specific stories about Dave, but we grew up in Kitimat. It was kind of a tradition thing, like off season, especially when you had more time. Thursday nights, once you got invited, was all about pickup, 8 to 10. Friday nights was often kind of, you did your own thing. Often it was outdoor court. Saturday night was kind of our rec center games. So Saturday night, there were 2 8-foot hoops, so you could throw down. There were 10-foot hoops. I actually think they might have been 9, 11, 9, 10 and a half, because some of us could throw down dunks at that hoop. But the middle court was always volleyball, and then the 2 outside courts were always the 2 main hoops for basketball, so half court. And then Sunday afternoon was, we used to call it Frater Ball. So Grant Frater was the history teacher, law teacher at my high school. He was like the older teacher that you didn't mess with on the court. He would foul you hard. He would elbow you. He's the one that invited you. And the worst is when you showed up with a friend. I remember this in grade 9. One of my good friends, one of my groomsmen showed up and had not quite been invited. And he was asked to watch. Like, it was like, you're watching.
Wow.
Because you're not quite ready. And it was but it was also like alumni would show up and a few other teachers would show up. So if you hit 20, you had your 4 teams, right? You had your 4 teams, small gym, big gym, winners court. And so the most exciting time of the year, though, was when Christmas came and you had the alumni come back for those games, because you had those college guys come in. Many of them would have lost a step, but when you were in grade 11, grade 10, 12, especially when you got to the point where you could influence a game, you wanted to really perform and show those older guys that you could play. And it was, and then when you were a captain, so we used to do captains as well. You would pick teams. It was, I have fond memories of the picking of the teams, but also the shooting for ball. So a lot of times you would, you might pick the first 3 or 4 guys. At least there's balance, because it's competitive. But then you might have the rest of the guys actually shoot. And I actually remember on one occasion, this wasn't tradition, it was divided up. The 10, and I do this with my guys at Vanier. If I have big numbers, you have your 10 vets shoot on one hoop, and you have your 10 rookies shoot at the other. And the first 4 teams are set on this side, and then the next 4 on that side. And there's kind of a hierarchy, right? The 10 most experienced players will form these 4 or 8. It would be 8, I guess, and then the rest on that side. But I do remember Christmas being my most favorite time, because you had those reps. You'd have Isabel come from Oregon to visit her parents, and then you'd have all these other guys that you watched in grade 8 come back, and they might put on a little bit more weight. They might be out of shape. But we both know that when you hit your early 20s, you're a far better player in many ways than you would have been at 18.
Yeah.
And you're patient. You might have lost a step, or maybe you've gained a step or two and you've gotten stronger. And we're talking about the 80s and 90s, and it was a different game too.
Yeah.
Right. And even in your generation, it would have been different. When I coached you, it was I think a much tougher. We had guys in the post that were willing to foul and body. And when I played men's league here, it was all, you didn't want to get in the key, because there was always going to be 2 big guys that were willing to foul you hard. And so growing up as a skinny grade 9, grade 8, 9, 10 kid, it was a very challenging time to try to get into the key, and you had to fight through. Hand checking was legit at the high school level, and if you were a great defender, you had a huge impact on the game. So, and I know, even playing men's league here, or even with my own high school guys, I try to take it strong, try to initiate contact, and lead with the arm, maybe sometimes the upper arm, forearm, elbow, because I harken back to those days where I knew I was going to get hammered, and you have to be ready for that contact. And we had to be back in the day for sure. So I don't remember any specific stories, but I do remember those were the moments when you kind of, I think, you learn to deal with games where you're doubting whether you belong on the floor. You don't make a shot. Some guy's lighting you up. You're getting, fouled hard, and maybe they're making calls, but you're scared to go back in the key. But then you're also learning that in hour 2 of pickup, maybe you catch fire, or maybe you can learn to adjust to how that defender's playing you. And that's why, I like playing pickup and I liked playing pickup with your boys before COVID. There are those times we had, because those are the times when you kind of have to learn to coach yourself and deal with the ups and downs of just playing the game and not worrying about whether you're necessarily winning and losing, because you knew there's going to be another game. And so for me it was we didn't have club ball, we didn't have structure in the off season. It was all just finding games and time to work on your skills. And I really think that was probably the biggest impact on my game and improvement were those, it went from Freighter ball to my high school coach, Dan Stryker. It became Freighter ball to Striker ball. And he coached me 4 years. He coached me 8, 9, 10, and 12. And those 2 men by far had the biggest impact on me as teachers and coaches, and I think even kind of father figures as well. So I think that's one reason why I have a passion for coaching, is because I had such positive, a positive 5 years in high school where I took a lot of pride in playing for my school, and got a lot out of the game, not just on the court but off it too.
Hey guys, producer Liam here. Just want to let you know that we will be launching a new basketball related podcast next week called Rock Talk. So if you're enjoying this episode so far, you may want to be on the look for Rock Talk.
So I'm curious, do they still call it Freighter ball? No, I guess they moved on now.
You know what?
You know what it's called now?
You know what? The game has changed dramatically over the last 20 years in Kitimat. Unfortunately, there was the demographics, the population of the town changed, and sadly, basketball. The last time I talked to my old coach, who became principal of the school, the game isn't what it used to be in my hometown. It's just, it kind of, fewer kids played. They've had trouble fielding teams. So instead of, when Dave Thompson and I were there, instead of, 1,000 to 1,200, the population of the school has dropped to sort of 500, 600, which is still more than I think what our 3 high schools in town have, but there are just fewer kids playing. So to get 10 boys that want to play has been a struggle over the years. And so let alone 10 10 boys that are going to compete. I know in the last few years there have been teams that have gone on to provincial at either the 1 or 2A level. BC now has 4 tiers, so 4's either the biggest schools or the most talented smaller schools. So I don't think there's much pickup ball. I haven't gone back with the intent of playing hoops in many years. When I go back, I'm riding a bike or I'm just visiting family or golfing. So I never bring my basketball runners. Now that Christopher is really enjoying the game, and I'll bring a ball this summer because I think we're going to try, depending on COVID and that, we may try to at least get to my hometown and visit. My in-laws still live there, and maybe and I've taken him to go to some of the outdoor hoops that I used to play at religiously, and it's not the same. I think that died maybe 10 years ago, unfortunately.
Wow, 'cause that's what I was thinking, like the second generation McCarron.
No.
And
The cool story, post my high school years. So So Joel Almeida made the AAA provincials my grade 8 year, and then no boys team, if I'm not mistaken, had made provincials until my grade 12 year. So kind of fast forwarding a little bit, I mean, maybe I'll touch a little bit on those middle years because they are, the grade 10 for a lot of boys, and we see it here in Whitehorse, their bodies may mature, they start their growth spurt, they start kind of getting stronger, their coordination starts to kick in grade 10, 11. And this is a true story. I used to keep track of my own stats in grade 10, and then in grade 11, 12, we had kind of stats. We had a statistician on those teams. And in grade 10, I still remember, averaging, like high teens. I was already kind of keeping track of records and scoring and trying to keep track of assists. And so by grade 10, and that year going to grade 10, I had actually made my first provincial tryout. And so kind of the next step from just being selected by a high school coach to go to a camp, because there was no I didn't make it because of talent. My coach chose me because I worked hard and he could see I loved the game and he could trust me with this opportunity. In grade 9, so that grade 9 year, I think I started most of the year, but we had some very strong grade 10s that were just aggressive and tough and maybe not super, skilled, but just they knew where they were at. And ironically enough, one of them was the guy that I looked up to on my grade 6-7 team. He was the point guard, anyways, that summer, that spring, my coach drove a bunch of us, 6 or 7 of us, to Prince Rupert for the regional tryout. So again, this is a different world than Whitehorse, where you can sort of show up for a lot of teams, and you can make a team Yukon, right? I mean, not always. There's if there's more than 10 kids, you do have to try out. But there are, this idea in Yukon that you have a really good chance of representing Yukon if you have a passion and you work hard. And it's one of the joys and amazing opportunities for kids up here. To make a Team BC, you had to go to a regional camp. So this camp was the Northwest zone, which was north of Prince George. So everyone from north of Prince George who wanted to try out had to go to Prince Rupert. And so we went, kids from Smithers, Hazelton, Vanderhoof, and points in between. Terrace had a huge contingent. So there must have been 50, 60 kids in this gym. And we worked hard for 2 days. We had to stay overnight, Saturday, Sunday night. And Sunday and then Saturday night. Saturday night, Sunday, then we came home that night. So a 2-day camp, work hard, and then from there you get ranked. And so that grade 9 summer for the Northwest, I got ranked number 1. So that was a huge moment, is that a bunch of coaches who were there put my name forward as the number 1 sort of in that part of BC. And it wasn't my coach that he was part of the committee, but it was kind of a big deal. And then when those names get forwarded to BC, the top 50 in the province get selected, and only I think 4 of us north of Prince George went to this camp in the entire province. And so a bunch of dudes that I competed with the rest of my high school career were invited. A guy that I played college with my first year at, now it's Trinity or Thompson Rivers. Back then it was University College of the Cariboo, UCC. The big man out of Williams Lake, which is actually south of south of Prince George, but he made it to BC camp as well, out of Williams Lake, Kalamnitsa. And so we all went to BC tryouts that year. Didn't make it, but got to compete. And so one of my favorite stories is the one highlight of that camp is that I won the free throw competition at that camp. Yeah, so 50 kids, free throw competition. The playoff rounds were scores out of 10, and then they slowly added 10 till the finals was sort of a shot for shot 30. And the group of us that made it to the final included Steve Nash. So I that was my kind of claim to fame, is that I won the competition, the free throw competition at BC camp that year or that summer. And I still remember there was one-on-one competition that Nash won. There was a layup competition from the elbows that Nash won. He won basically everything. 3-point competition, I don't think he won, but he was right there. And I still, that was another moment or a turning point in just like my own confidence, because it was I got cut and I didn't really have a legit chance of making the team, but you're sort of in the mix with those bodies, and many of whom went on to play university. And then I tried again in going to grade 11. I didn't make it. A lot of the coaches, they love the handle. They like I do pass, even though I like to shoot. I do pass on occasion. So they like the fact that I could pass the ball and I had good speed and I could run the beep test and be right near the end. But I was small, a little slight, and I didn't play defense. I wasn't a good defender. And that was the biggest difference, and something I tell kids I coach right now. I mean, and by grade 10, grade 11, if you're not, if you don't have that dog in you, if that's not something that is sort of a part of you, it wasn't part of my game, and I never took a lot of pride in it, and it never really came. And so, that was a big difference, along with the fact that there was just better players that could do a little bit more than me in every way. But to at least have those opportunities was fantastic. And my grade 12 year, I didn't try out. Instead, I went to an SFU camp, just a team camp. Sort of not a team camp, just, you can sign up, you go to it. And that was pretty cool because my other starting guard and I flew down and stayed with, an alumni, actually the brother of the guy in grade 10 and grade 7 who started ahead of me. His older brother, we stayed with, and I ended up overtaking him for point guard position by grade 12, by my grade 11 year. So it's small little world there. But anyways, so Junior's older brother, put us up for a week, and the coach at SFU was Jay Triano. So Jay Triano is an NBA coach and assistant coach. I still think he's in the NBA right now. So Jay Triano was the coach of SFU at the time and had a phenomenal program there, NAIA. And that was cool because that grade 12 year, before grade 12, I made the top 10 that summer of the camp, and got to play against SFU in kind of the final game. So it was kind of cool, again, to just have that opportunity going to grade 12, to just have another really great experience of trying to match up against, a top level, university program in Canada. And then that just led to a really phenomenal, successful grade 12 year for me that then sort of just led to a little bit of a chance to play in college.
Yeah, so I was going to bring it up later in the pod, but I don't know if you remember. You told me that story when I was in high school about you. So you'll talk about this in a bit, I'm sure. You went and played college. You tried out for UFC.
Yeah.
And the coach said, your offense is great, but you don't
yeah.
make a defense, and you're not good enough. And that's why you have to have pride on the defensive end.
Yeah.
And I still remember you telling me that,
Yeah.
and I tell players that I've coached the same story from you.
Yep.
And how being only one-dimensional is so limiting.
It was limiting, and it was the biggest, and even that year. So, and the part of the I had a lot of, our high school teams was a lot of fun to play on, even though we had so much competition in the north there. We had a really tenacious, team, and it was, we were all kind of 6 foot. We had one 6'2" post. We were all around 6 feet tall. We were interchangeable. It's almost like my early 90s high school team was sort of like the modern day NBA, because we would switch everything. We could all run the floor. We could all full court press. But we also had one or two other guys that were really, really phenomenal defenders. So this guy went to the SFU camp. He was the best defender on our team. We used to joke, I always used to try to be like MJ, and he was like my Pippin. He would defend. Now, that's not totally true, because if I knew I was going up against a really good player, I wanted to match up against that good player. But if it was just an average team, my coach wouldn't necessarily put me on a guy that was going to run me ragged if I had to try to score and create. But if I knew I was going up against, this guy named Greg Sale from Prince George. He went on to play at UFC, I think, or maybe U of A, and he was a year older than me, 6'2" or 3. And I remember wanting to play against him and play well, and I never really did. But I really relished that opportunity. And then when I went to provincials in grade 12, we made it to BC's. And that was what I was getting to earlier. I wanted to match up against all those good teams and their best players. But nonetheless, the point is, it wasn't something that I put a whole lot of, and I think I had the footwork for it. I had the quickness for it, but it wasn't something that I really, really tried, to add to my game. I was far more concerned with trying to score and pass and create and run the break and just sort of try to be the floor general without worrying so much about, getting down and slapping the floor and just trying to stop a guy, right? That wasn't my priority, which unfortunately I think kind of limited me. And even when I moved to Whitehorse, it wasn't something that I necessarily was known for, and never have been. So yeah, it's a little bit of definitely something that was missing in my game.
So
sadly.
You're talking about back when you charted your stats, you knew your stats.
Yep.
We focus so much in basketball on offensive statistics. Mm-hmm. Do you think it would make a difference if there was more defensive statistics? And then players would buy in more? Oh, yeah.
My high school coach he would remind, along with defense, we kept turnovers. Turnovers was one. Defensive stats would have been a really good one, because he absolutely would call me out on scoring 25 but allowing 28. Or right, like I know we do that. Like I do that with players that I coach too, and another one was turnovers. And so I knew when I had a bad game turnover wise, and I wasn't. Even if I put points or, eventually could hit some threes, if I knew that I turned the ball over or made some really bad passes at the worst time, that would eat at me. I had no, delusions that I had a good game if I turned the ball over, or if some guy just kind of owned me off the dribble, or if I was lazy with closeouts. So I knew, I was fully aware. But if there were numbers to back it up, yeah, I bet you that would have probably hit home a little bit more. I would say, and part of in growing up in the North Coast there is that we competed in those tiers, so we didn't always get a chance to play. Terrace always had a phenomenal teams, but they were a tier above us in population. So we never had that consistent, really tough competition in the North Coast. So we would beat up on teams like Hazelton or Houston, BC, Smithers, for the most part. And so there weren't always guys on those teams that really challenged you. It wasn't until you went to Prince George or Vanderhoof, or my grade 12 year, speaking of Jeremy, we went to a tournament at Ladysmith through that connection with the old Tony McCrory. And Tony McCrory, actually, going way back, was Dave Thompson's best friend. His son was Dave Thompson's best friend in elementary school. And Tony McCrory, Junior went on to, at the time, set the scoring record for the province of BC at the AAA level and played at SFU and was actually friends, if I'm not mistaken, with Jeremy growing in. They knew of each other in high school, and I don't know if they still keep in touch, but I remember speaking with Jeremy that he had gone on to play pro in Europe. And again, this is a kid that grew up in Kitimat, and he went on to be one of the top scorers in BC high school history and from my hometown. And Mr. Thompson's old best friend. I still remember when I was in grade 8 watching those practices. So again, it's one of those things, kids from Whitehorse can get to that point. We have kids that play at a college or uni level for volleyball and basketball, and it's not, and and if they find that commitment and they put those reps in and they have those opportunities to get out and actually use it to their advantage and to drive them to shoot for something more than just being maybe the best player at FH or Vanier or Porter Creek. I saw it growing up, and I think that's a big. But going back, I think that would have helped. The defense of the reality that, and my coach, he pushed me in different ways, but wasn't necessarily, you need to be the best defender on the team kind of thing. He wasn't necessarily pushing me for that. Yeah, but.
I think you would have flourished in today's game with your skill set because defense is less of a priority today than it was back then. There's no hand checking.
I know.
Like I can only imagine what your hips would have been like.
And
your body.
Yeah. No, I still know who, and this guy Chris, my old teammate, he would hand check me. He was a little bigger, a little strong. He was my height, but he was a little stronger than me, and he would hand check. And absolutely. You had to learn how to, you had to learn how to spin off it. You had to learn how to attack it. The shot fake and the jab step just to get an advantage on them. And now I use those moves more than ever because I can't keep up with a lot of these high school guys, right? Most of them now. So that extra step, it's funny, is I need it just like I would have needed it back in the 80s when I needed to play against a guy 2 or 3 years older than me that was just stronger. It was. It's funny you remember those stories. But the other thing too about kind of my 1 year at UCC / TRU is that it was also a reality check that I was surrounded by teammates that did value the defensive, and on that team, we had amazing offensive players who were 3 and 4 years older than me. So as mentioned early in our chat here, these were guys that were in their 3rd or 4th year because they had university status at this point. They were mature. They were more composed on the floor. I was probably faster and maybe quicker. I could jump a little higher than some of them, maybe even shoot better. But I didn't have quite that experience, and the speed of the game got to me, and I was happy. I mean, I was pretty happy coming off the bench, but we also had a defensive stopper. I still remember Jason. He would be the guy that would be on the best player from Douglas or Langare or Trinity Western, and I would come in to fill one of those two roles and get a few minutes. I almost averaged double digits and had a good year. I had a couple really strong games. I still remember winning a few Subway Player of the Game. So there was like there was potential that again inspired me maybe trying to get to the next level and play maybe even UBC or UFC or UVic. One of my teammates at UCC who played behind me off the bench went on the next year to play at UVic. He was the best player in Kamloops, a guy named Brad Buckham, who's actually a professor now. Amazingly, I reached out to him just a year or two ago, after almost 20 years, I think now, to find out, how life was treating him. I came across his name. I'm not sure, maybe through alumni or something. And he was a phenomenal shooter, and he went on to play at UVic the next year, and we had other guys move on. But the end of my year at UCC, they had recruited a player from the Croatian national U18 team to come in and take over the point position at UCC. And the writing was on the wall. I was going to be a bench player again, and I think I just burnt out. It was 6 days a week. Sunday was our rest day, you know, and you played every Friday, every Saturday you had games. I think things haven't changed either in Alberta or BC. I still think you make your road trip, you play back-to-back games, either home or away, and then you practice and you weight train. And by that point, I think I if I wasn't going to start, and to be honest, I really enjoyed my time in Kamloops. I met the guys that I would live with for the next 3 years. And I had no desire to really leave and put time in. And that summer after my first year, I was working a lot. I made good money working at the aluminum smelter in Kitimat, and I just didn't have time to put into the game. And I play for fun, play for pickup, but definitely I don't even think I played pickup that second year at university or at college. I think I just kind of stepped away for an entire year and just worked out, put on 20, 25 pounds. I got to 210. Wow. I'm 190. I'm still 190. I'm still my college weight from first year, right? Maybe a little bit later. And then eventually I got to 205, 210 weight training and putting on weight. And then when I moved, by the time I was about 200 when I moved to Whitehorse, so I lost a bunch of that. But I became a weight training guy. And then I played a little bit of pickup my last 2 years in Kamloops, and that was a lot of fun because it was high level. We'd go to provincials for senior men's, or for men's provincials, and so you had something to shoot for and play with guys that had experience or that were just older guys. So yeah.
So you played for 1 year at UCC?
Just 1 year.
And then was it after that year and you saw the writing on the wall with Croatian guys coming in? You go try for UFC? Is that when the...
Well, that was it. That would have been that was the fall of, sorry, not the fall. That would have been the spring of that year, the end of that year. Yeah. It was the equivalent of a rookie camp, an ID camp.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how I got into UCC, is that the provincials were held at Trinity Western. And this is where I think a lot of the kids who are affected by COVID and the shutting down of Alberta, BC, having, Krisha Rubio have a chance to get her and fly her down to Camosun and Kelowna last year and have her be able to put on a show a little bit for these schools and maybe, try out basically. And so my high school coach went to teacher school with the coach of UCC at the time, a guy named Lindsay Karpluk. And he said, yeah, come on down. We've got this 1 day tryout, sort of open ID run. You will come in with my team. We invite whoever from the Okanagan mainly and the highway up to Prince George mainly. So I showed up with 20 or 30 other high school guys that were invited or just walked in, and we went through the drills, we played games, and after that camp I was told I would have a spot on the team. And I also had interest from Trinity Western because of my performance we didn't do well at provincials. We were 15th out of 16. We won our last game. But we fared well. We were going in 15th, actually, Mount Elizabeth. and we held true to our spot, but we played the number 2 team, St. George's, and played them really, really tough, really respectable. I think it was like a 15-point loss. We played Carey High out of the island, and played them well. And their point guard was a guy that I played with at those tryout camps, and he went on to play at Mount Royal. So I got to play Mount Royal my first year in college. So we had a run in there. I still remember him. But anyways, that year, that college year, there was still the potential of wanting to keep playing, but my heart was it was more like just going through the motions. And then even the starting point guard that started ahead of me was returning for his 4th year. So that's another factor actually, is at the start, John Favela from Terrace, the town 60K from where I grew up with. He was older than me by 3 or 4 years, but he had 1 more year of eligibility. So he was returning, plus this Nino Sosé was his name. And Nino became all Canadian at the college level. And then he took his talent to UBC. And he played at UBC years later.
Wow.
So this was a player. This was a 6'3" point guard from Europe that was just phenomenal. And I played against him when I was on a men's team. We entered a team, and still it was fun going against him and sort of matching up a little bit. But it was a good decision. It was a good decision. I have no regrets. And then just from that point on, it was just playing for the love of the game, as I sometimes say. Yeah.
Yeah. So on a side note, we're going to get this on the pod. You're the same age as Steve Nash.
Yep.
And did you ever play anybody from Vanderhoof? I don't know if I.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember Joel Mueller?
Mueller. I know Joel Mueller.
Okay, I couldn't remember if I talked to you about this before or not.
Yeah. Oh, I could go on about Joel Mueller. Joel Mueller was the recognized best player north of Prince George, I would say. So even though this camp, I was ranked, Joel was the day-to-day best player. And I played Joel every year, probably once, at least once, starting grade 9 through to grade 12. Oh, yeah. Because you know Joel. How do you, from Grand Prairie?
Yeah. So I played with his younger brother.
Oh, yeah. They're a legend. They're a legendary family.
They're a legend.
Yeah.
And I remember because Joel coached the girls team my first year.
That's right.
And he actually went to a tournament, and the pre-ranking MVP of the tournament, he was number 1 and Steve Nash was number 2.
Wow.
So Steve Nash obviously won it. His team won. Michael's just dominated.
Yeah.
But Joel has a claim to fame, kind of like yours.
Yeah.
Of
like free throw shooting.
Free throw competition.
Joel was... the thing about Joel was Joel Mueller, like the Muellers, I think there's like 3 of them, right? 3 brothers, Austin Mueller.
No, 5 of them. I think.
Oh, is there 5 of them?
I think there's 5.
Yeah.
4 or 5.
So Joel, he was Vanderhoof. Again, I don't know what their tradition has been like over the last 20 years, but Vanderhoof, along with Prince Rupert at the AA level, I would say, they're like they're like the Duke, they're the Kentucky, they're the Indiana. They have a tradition of excellence. Yeah. And Vanderhoof's even much smaller than Prince Rupert. So when you walked into that gym, we were always invited to play in the Vanderhoof tournament, and it was a highlight, along with one of the Prince George high schools, usually Kelly Road or PGSS. And so Vanderhoof, if you could compete in Vanderhoof, if we could compete with those guys, the Vikings, then we knew we were a good team. And we never really could. They were always better. They were always a little bit better. But Joel was a guy that if I could match up and maybe outplay him, I knew I was in a good spot. The thing about Joel is that he was really composed, is that he made very few mistakes. And I mentioned earlier, like my turnover count, the one drawback is that I think I would always, just make a few too many mistakes. Whereas, him and his teams were just so disciplined and well coached. I mean, we had phenomenal coaching as well, but it just seemed like they just were a little more precise and solid in every way. And I think it just goes back again to their strong tradition of being a kind of a powerhouse at the AA provincial level, for sure. That's funny because I knew Joel had gone, and Grand Prairie was actually, we had another. This is before your time, before Joel's time. If there's one guy that I remember being the ultimate in hand checking, and going back to our previous segments, it was a guy that was 3 or 4 years older than me that went to Grand Prairie, Mike Risdale, really great player, and he, that was the introduction. And I remember being told, Grand Prairie is a nice option for kids in the north of BC to go to. I don't know if it's just the Northern Connection thing, but I'm Facebook friends with Joel. I don't go on Facebook much anymore, but Dustin Hefner here in town.
Yeah, he's really good friends with him.
Good friends with him, and so his name comes up every now and then. And I think I may have reached out to Joel just a couple years ago. Maybe I should again. It's funny you mentioned Joel's name because he was coach of the year, I think the same year that Craig Anderson, who is now the coach at Olds, and Vanier is proud to send Nicole Farkas to Olds. So Craig Anderson will be coaching Nicole, and I think just based on talking with Craig and trying to find out how I knew of him, and I noticed that Joel and him were both co-coaches of the year in Alberta that year. Wow. So a lot of little connections over the last week because and Coach Anderson went to UCC before I did, and I met him in Lethbridge when I coached at Nationals years ago. Like just a small world, with all these different connections and names. And I have fond memories of competing with Joel. He was always one of the toughest guys to match up with. And Joel and Steve Nash were both so fundamentally sound. Like, I think that's what I remember about Nash in high school, is that he just did everything so precise. His passes were on the money and hard. His jab steps and his shot form. I remember his shot form early on in high school was very low. He had a really low pocket. And I was like, why is he shooting from his chest or his elbow, his chin? And I remember thinking, wait, isn't it supposed to? But then he was just gradually bringing it up to the point that it just became picture perfect, right? But he was building that foundation of having kind of that low shot. And as he got stronger from sort of 9 to 12, you watch him right now on a slow-mo video on YouTube, and that elbow, he tucks it, and it's just like perfectly into the ball, and he's one of the greatest shooters of all time, and just because he's so fundamental, and even his crossover and his dribble, and I still remember he was the MVP of the junior boys championship in grade 10. His name was already there, and well known, for sure. So it's cool being reminded of guys like Joel, and big part of my upbringing, because that's who you definitely you're striving to be, those guys, and enter that kind of level for sure.
So that would have been a good match because I played against you and him, and you guys are opposite. You're more explosive. You're herky-jerky. Yeah. You're a scorer. Yeah. He's kind of a facilitator. He's slow, methodical.
Absolutely.
It would have been a very interesting matchup back in the day.
That's exact, and that's why it was frustrating, because I knew I had the feet, and I knew I had some speed, but it just seemed like he had a better IQ. Honestly, he just had a better IQ for the game, and that's, I think, something I realized into my 20s a little bit, is that those guys that were at that higher level just had a little bit more composure. I've used composure a few times. It just seemed like they didn't just rely on trying to outjump, outspeed, outshoot. And there was even the MVP of the AA provincials, so that final tournament that I went to was a guy named Dave Buchanan, and him and Nash and guys like Joel Mueller, they were the upper elite of the province, and Dave Buchanan went on to be the point guard at, I don't know if he was the point guard, but he was he went on to play at SFU, and again, you're watching him, and it's like, I'm watching these guys thinking, man, I know I can get down the floor. I know I can go one-on-one. But I was also fully aware that they just did not make those key mistakes. They weren't, leaving one of, I still remember my coach harping on me, stop leaving the ground, right? Stop trying to go under the basket and leave the ground and pass in the air and make mistakes like that, or dribbling into a crowd. And I think, if I know now, what, obviously we all wish we could go back, and I wish I could have just been focused a little bit more on that instead of maybe relying a little bit more on trying to just be Russ Westbrook and be more like Luka, right? And that's what Joel was like, kind of like a Luka. He knew pace, and now that I'm older, and I've been older for a few years now, I realize now I can still have an impact on a game, and without jumping high or anything like that, just from sort of timing and body position and a little bit of footwork and maybe the odd, try to be quick here and there, but definitely that's long, I'm long past that now, but yeah, no, that's a really, I'm glad you brought him up, because I tried to keep up with him for 4 years for sure. Yeah.
Well, he's living in San Bernard now.
Yeah, I remember that. I do remember, because I think he does some club. Does he do some club?
I'm not sure.
Or maybe,
Austin.
Yeah.
I talked to him a bit here.
Oh,
and
yeah.
there, stuff like that. And
so he's younger. Austin was younger.
Yeah, he's the youngest
Okay.
one, and there's at least 4 of them.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I'm thinking there's maybe 4, but there might have been 5.
Yeah.
But he's living just in there around Joel.
Okay.
Too, so.
Salmon Arm, geez, they have a tradition of amazing basketball, especially, I think, female basketball, the girls program there. They were a powerhouse for years when I was growing up. But another fond memory, fond name.
So now I'm curious, like, you grew up in a small place, Whitehorse, the Yukon. It's not that small. We're up to 40,000 now, but we're really isolated. Mm-hmm. And you obviously went to all these different camps, all this stuff. You got to really see a lot of the different talent, but then people saw you. If you were growing up now in Whitehorse, and like you have your son growing up and he's kind of in that spot, even though he's likes to play so many different sports.
Yeah.
What would you recommend, or what are your thoughts on how people go to that next level? How do you get to play at university if you're in the Yukon?
Wow, I think we've had, again, pre-COVID, of course, so many of our athletes get opportunities that most kids in BC, Alberta, all the provinces would never have. And that's the opportunity to compete at Westerns, Nationals, Club Nationals. I had a chance to go with Wolfpack crew last year. I coached Chris and his U12 team, or whatever it was, 2 summers ago now, in Calgary. And then I accompanied Tim Brady to another tournament in the lower mainland of BC and in Abbotsford. And it was a phenomenal opportunity. And that was with grade 8 and 9s. So it's a lot of it is really up to the athlete. If a young guy or a young girl can go to these tournaments, and instead of just being happy that they're there, filling a role or playing in a game and representing Yukon, which is amazing, if they can take those opportunities and learn from some of the best players in the country and actually commit themselves to trying to get on that trajectory, will they actually get there? You know what? Let's be honest. If you're in grade 8 or 9 and you're trying to catch up to the best player from Ontario or the best player from Alberta, you're probably not going to get to that level. But to play at a college level, or to eventually get to a point where maybe in your early 20s, if you mature a little bit, and maybe not out of high school, but if you keep developing and maybe becoming a redshirt, or maybe getting on the end of a bench at a small college and just keeping at it. Maybe you can, because we've had kids play at a high level before. But a lot of it is, is a kid in grade 9 or 10 going to be able to take that opportunity and kind of build on it, instead of just being happy with being a member of Team Yukon or an Arctic Winter Games team? I do find maybe for some that's kind of the end game. And it doesn't have to be. We've got some phenomenal athletes right now that, if they're, they've put some time in. We've got some girls who are playing at the next level. FH has sent Marin, Bilski to Camosun. Just found out that Sammy Demchuk's going to be playing in Lethbridge. Nicole and Olds. I think some of our younger guys in town, if they're willing to do more than what we're giving them as coaches, I think it's going to take more than just, me opening up a gym an extra 1 or 2 times. I know you've been amazing over the last few years, given opportunities for your boys to get in and play and improve, and it's paid off. And Brady with Wolfpack, but I still think a lot of those kids need to do a little bit more, because we're trying to bridge a gap with kids who figured it out in grade 7, 8, 9, like I did. And I pushed myself. I had a coach that believed in me and that challenged me. And, he didn't want me just to be a pretty good player in Kitimat. And, he wanted us, and not just me, but my team to also represent a kind of a higher level. And it was, the way I'm talking, you can tell that, we go to like 5, 6, maybe sometimes 7 tournaments in a year, and you were looking forward to walking to those gyms and performing. And once you made a name for yourself in grade 9 and 10 at the junior level, by the time you hit 11, 12, they knew who you were. You had a reputation. You knew who those players were in Vanderhoof or Prince George or Williams Lake or Cornell, and you had something to shoot for. And for Yukon, it's tough because to beat Quebec is not realistic, right? And so for the Arctic Winter Games, it's, more realistic to where we can compete with with Alaska, especially if they're, that younger cohort that they've traditionally sent. Definitely NWT, definitely Nunavut. For you, hearkening back to those days, when I got a chance to coach you, competing against that Northern Alberta team was really, really tough. Yeah. But it wasn't, they also had those U19s, they had boys that were at Fort Mac and Grand Prairie, and we had high school guys. Half our team, you remember, were grade 10, 11s, right? And then we had you guys, you Porter Creek boys, plus Kevin Darling as our one sort of overage guy. Not overage, he was under 19, but he was the one grad. For us to go in and compete, with Alberta was tough, but Alaska and Nunavut. I'm going to tell a story about Coach Jansen here. I can count on one hand, and I've said this for years, I can count on one hand some of the most memorable games, and I'll count down a couple of them. One of the games against Coach Shaw was Coach Gray at Vanier right now. I don't remember the year, maybe 2003, 4. I can't remember what year he graded in, but it was his grade 11 year. We were playing FH at the old FH gym, and I remember we had lost every single game that year. And the reason we had lost every single game, well, now it's coming back to me, is because that was Porter Creek's grade 12 year with Chad Curlew, Tim Beaver, Sina, Kazimi, like Ben Ryan, like they were awesome that year. They were untouchable, really, that grade 12 year. And I know they went to BC. They went to Alaska to compete in Juneau. And so that grade 11 year for Eric Gray, Porter Creek had Tony in grade 10. I think that was his point. Tony was grade 10 that year. And I think it was grade 10 that year. Maybe my numbers are wrong, but long story short, I still remember we were down, and I remember Coach Shaw was hoping to get a crack at that FH team, and we were down 1 bucket. FH had the ball at half, and we knew, they had taken the ball across half and were inbounding it, and we knew it was going to go to Tony, and we knew it was going to, go to their best player, their best young guy, even though he was super young at the time. And we ended up stealing it at half and winning off a layup, almost at the buzzer. And it was Eric Gray that scored that winning layup off the inbounds. But nonetheless, there's a few other games in there, that over the years, many of them at the old FH gym, actually, some of them comebacks. But one of the games that definitely stand out was Arctic Winter Games. Was that 2004 then?
Yeah,
2004. 2004. So yeah, my years are definitely off here when it comes to Coach Gray. But 2004 Arctic Winter Games, Alberta is going to win the gold. For sure. Writing was on the wall. I remember we got blown out by them in the round robin. And Arctic Winter Games that year, for whatever reason, they went with a full round robin. And then the two best teams went straight to the final. There was no bye. There were no playoffs. And it was going to be just that. And so we played Alberta early and got beat. We played Alaska. We played NWT. Nunavut. Like, we did the full round robin. And nonetheless, the last game of the tournament for us round robin was NWT. And I still remember looking at the math and realizing that we had a chance to get to the final. And I'm trying to think here how it would have worked out. So we needed to beat NWT because NWT beat Alaska, but then Alaska beat us. It was like we needed to beat NWT to form a three-way tie for second. And there was a number. We needed to blow out NWT by a certain number. I remember it was in the 20s. I think it was maybe 21. And we ended up playing that game, playing it amazingly well. I don't remember how exactly, but we blew them out by more than 20. And we got to the final, and I remember the number 38. I just remember. Do you remember 38? I remember you lighting it up. You had a phenomenal game. It was one of the top 5 games I've ever been a part of as a coach. And you went head to head against a guy that was like arguably the best big man in the tournament, that NWT big man.
Yeah.
And he went to Lethbridge, I think. He played uni, I think.
Yeah, he got offered a place in Ontario.
Yeah.
It was too far, and then he went and stayed. And they also had another guy I played with. He was
guard,
a year younger than me. He came in a
guard. Yeah, they were really good. Yeah. And we went and we had a respectable final against Alberta. Much better than getting beat by 50 probably. But I remember it was a respectable final. We gave them a run. We were there, whatever. We didn't just lie down, right? But I remember you. You hit some threes. You're all over the floor. You thoroughly outplayed this true big man. He was pretty built too. I remember he was quite a physical specimen. And it was, I don't know if they knew that we had to beat. I don't know if they took it for granted in that last game that we needed to win to break that three-way tie for second, because everyone had beaten Nunavut that year, and we made it to the final on that, and it was it was phenomenal, and we were definitely undermanned, just with a lot of youth, and we didn't have a lot of size, but fun tournament, but so no, fond memories.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's funny because so my second year, he comes down and he actually moved to grade 12 to Grand Prairie for his grade 12 year.
Really?
So after that year, we were both there. I'm in college, he's in high school.
Cool.
And the first time I see him is we talk about that game.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then
wow.
I ran into him a few years afterwards and stuff like that. And
yeah.
He kind of comes up and stuff.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of games. Like I don't, the years start to blend. Especially, I've been here 21 years now. So, certain years, maybe some of the stories or even teams kind of blend. But, I remember, I just remember a lot of those games were at FH. Just the atmosphere in that old gym. I remember Porter Creek being up on us by 12. Paul Mack up on us when I had Josh Tobias in grade 10, Chris Carino grade 10. John Colton was my big man. Josh Apostle was my other grade 12. And Paul Mack threw a 2-3 zone at us. 2-3s for the first time that year. And they didn't have a lot of superstar, but they were just solid all the way through, and they were peaking at the right time. FH and Vanier were the two best teams all year until the end of the year, and PC was hitting their stride. We were down 12, and I was livid. I was mainly livid with my grade 12s, but I was also fully aware that we were just getting beat. against the zone, and he surprised me thoroughly. I'm not surprised anymore. I always prepare against zones now before championships just to make sure, and he kept it on, and we moved John Colton from the baseline as my big 6'2", 6'3" post, and I'm like, okay, we need to switch this up. You need to go high post, and you need to be a passer. You need to be a passer because we need that zone, and we need to hit some shots. And it wasn't working in the first half, and we went to John in the high post. Josh Apostle is still one of the best slashers in town, I'm sure, in the Filipino League. And we put him on the baseline, slashing from the baseline. And Josh and Chris Carino in grade 10 started banging shots. And we won that game by almost 20. It was a 30-point turnaround in the second half. And it was, I've got a few of those memorable games, I'm sure. And I still remember playing you guys in grade 12 and thinking, oh, maybe we can stand a chance against you guys. Were the best team for sure. But I still remember thinking, oh, young upstart team. But it just wasn't going to happen because you guys had... You had Milos, you had 3-point shooting, you had Johnny King, you had Nathan. Like, you had a lot of grit, you had talent, you had dribblers, you had a little bit of everything. You know, you had a pretty good balanced team in your grade 12 year, and we were young and mistake prone. But who was on FH that year? I don't remember FH.
They had a really rough time.
Was that Cody's year? I'm trying to remember because we had like John. Like, that was my grade 10. That was like a lot of grade 10s, right?
Yeah, you were grade 10s.
10s and 11s.
The problem is with FH, because when I was in grade 11, FH still had grade 13 allowed. So they brought back 6 grade 13 kids.
Oh,
and then the following year, all the kids that had gotten cut didn't play. So their team was decimated.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah. We won't have to name names.
No.
we won't name
the people who are doing
the guy that played college. Yeah, there's some funny antics.
And then there was this other, I forget his name, but he was like 21 or 22.
Okay.
And he was supposed to be in like grade 15 or 16, but he was in grade 13 then.
Because your grade 11 year would have been our grade 12 year with Kevin.
And like Cragen and stuff.
And we had a really good team that year.
Yeah,
and Jordan Brown. Because that grade 12 year was one of the best year. Oh yeah, I remember. Because that FH team had talent though. Like, they had talent,
but they were all individualized.
It didn't come together. No. Yeah. See, that was an example where, that FH team was so good as a lot of individual, and I know I've had teams as well like this too that just didn't gel necessarily. But that grade 12, it would have been tough because Andrew Cragen. This is cool that we get to talk about guys that are teachers at like some of these schools. Andrew Cragen was my, and speaking of like the next level, this is good. Andrew Cragen was the big solid in the middle, and I kept stats that year. So Cragen was like 26 points a game, tons of boards. He could shoot the 3. Just all around good player, pretty unselfish too, and just long, right? Just long. And then starting, Kevin Darling was my defensive slasher. He could run the floor. He could run for ages. Really, really, and not necessarily skilled as a basketball player, but just a guy that was like a glue guy that you could rely on. And he did that for us on the Arctics team. Didn't score a lot, but at least could defend and be a guy on the front of a press. And he ended up playing at Royal Military College.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he did. He played soccer there, and he played a year of hoops for them. Yeah, so he was a great athlete, still is. Jordan Brown, one of best players we've had in UConn at point, despite his age. Mitch Anderson was Mitch Anderson would have been a year younger.
Yeah.
So Mitch Anderson could grade, but he was already 6'1", probably 6'1", and was just like a role player filler. But then I had Elijah Sanderson. At the same, Elijah would have been the same age.
Yeah, he's a couple years younger than me.
And Elijah was grade 9, but could shoot and defend as well. And that was my start. And I don't know if you knew this, but Elijah went on to Columbia Bible College.
Yeah.
College level.
Yeah. I remember that.
And he left in his senior years to go to what's called the High Road Academy. And he went to a private Christian school there and lit up the single A division. Jordan, we know, went to Mount Doug and was the MVP of the AAA island championships, and then had a really good year, and then went on to Camosun. And then Mitch Anderson was a really good basketball player, better volleyball player, and that was his sport. But he had some really good years for me too. His heart wasn't. No, it's not. He was a volleyball guy, but man, I wish he could have put more time into basketball, but I'm selfish. But he had the most beautiful 3-point shot. He had a tremendous form, and he had one of the most memorable games along with you. We made it to the final of the tournament in Hoona, Alaska. They helped fly us down to Hoona. They were really impressed with us in Skagway. They flew that grade 12 team down with Ben Chief. You had already graduated by that point, so that would have been grade 12, I think. I think I'm getting my years correct here. Johnny King was on that team.
That's right, yeah, because
Johnny King did grade 13
at Van.
I have to admit, I haven't had many grade 13s in my. I actually can count in 21 years. I think I've had two. Yeah. I've had two, and Johnny King was one of them. And I liked Johnny a lot. And he was on that team along with Ben and Mitch and a bunch of those really nice shooting grade 11s. And we had a great year that year. And Mitch lit it up in Hoona, and they were, I remember after that tournament, he might have had over 30 a game. They were like, where is this young guy going to play? Where is this 6'3" post who could step out, almost like modern basketball now, and shoot a 3 and run a pick and roll and could jump? They were expecting him to play college somewhere, but nonetheless, that was a really fun team, and I didn't even know what I was doing. We just ran a lot of pick and roll and let those guys run the floor, and Andrew could defend the key, and Jordan was, he was kind of in charge of running the O, and just they all knew their role, right? They knew their role. And you guys would have been young, and FH was just couldn't hold it together for 40 minutes. We'd always get them in the fourth quarter, it seemed, even if games were tight. But that happens, that happens all the time. Yeah. That happens all the time. Yeah.
I'm curious now, because you've been up here for 20 years, and as you've just reminisced about lots of different stuff.
I got a waist belt on. I got a low back problem right now. But anyways, go ahead. Yeah.
I have really noticed so when you talked about your moment when you realized that you needed to compete better and what it took was in grade 8. At the start of grade 8. Yeah. For me, it was that Arctic Winter Games. But I was already in grade 12.
Yeah.
I have, talking with athletes up here, I noticed that a lot of them have difficulty understanding when those moments are. Yeah. Now, you've talked about teams getting out and stuff like that, and sometimes they go to nationals, but the expectation when they go to nationals and let's just go and try to have fun.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's go and do that. And they're not in our league, and there's no compete level essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have a good idea on the solution to that? So, have these aha moments for the kids at younger ages, like in grade 8, like you, where there's actually a chance for them to work on it?
I think the last few years, I've posed, we've had kids, and I've named a few of them already that, are having a chance to maybe go on and play at a college level. We've got we've had some really, really, really good, players from Porter Creek who are graduating, in the last couple of years. Quaden's a great player. Ralph, I think has been, if there's, one kid, there's a few kids that I don't know if I've lost sleep, but I've definitely been up late. Yeah. Ralph has been one. Tony was one. Quaden's one. These are guys that I think have put a lot into the game and, have the potential to play at another level if they so choose. But again, are they the ones that are putting, a solution? Maybe, recognizing kids in grade 9, 10, who aren't just the ones that are doing the extra sessions with us, or maybe with Wolfpack, who aren't just making Team Yukon in grade 10 or some kind of traveling team, but maybe just explicitly saying, here, I think you might be able to play at another level. Maybe we actually do have to. I've never been one to do that in the past, because I've always wanted to be kind of the kid, for the player to develop that love of the game without me having to put any pressure on them to like play college or something like. And so, with some of the names that I've mentioned or some of the boys that have gone on, I never said to Jordan, like, you should play college one day. You're good enough in grade 8 and 9, or Elijah or Mitch or, Kevin Darling. That was never even a topic of conversation. They kind of just discovered it on their own. Did you discover it on your own? Like you said in grade 12.
Well, yeah, so
right? In grade 12, you're like, hey,
I don't know if you remember
I can actually
this.
compete. Yeah.
I don't know if you remember this. It was, I had no aspirations for it all because I didn't know it existed. I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And of course, like, you live in the Yukon.
Yep.
So you can't do it. We're Leicester. And basketball Yukon don't know what was going on, but there was no traveling teams from my age group.
Yeah,
nothing.
that's true. Yeah.
They had like, people were burnt out or there was infighting or something. So we go there, and I'm not sure if you remember, I came back to school after spring break on Monday, and the coach that Alberta team was friends with the Grand Prairie coach.
Oh.
And then so he had told them about me, and they emailed all the schools.
Yeah.
Found me, and then I gave them your number.
Yeah.
And then they would have talked to you about that, and I went down for the ID camp, and then...
Yeah, and then you went to the same ID camp. Yeah, that's exactly.
And
what
that
we
was
were
early April, and this was like the middle of March.
Yep.
So like a week or two later, I was down in Grand Prairie, went to the ID camp. They offered me a spot.
There you go. Yeah.
It's just kind of like it came out of nowhere.
Yeah, and that's. You were. I mean, it's also. I mean, like along with these guys that we're talking about here. You were already sort of. Yeah, you'd already proven yourself this level. It's almost like you just needed to be pushed through the door. So I guess what I'm talking, and put in that situation where someone has faith in you or has seen you. But now that's interesting because if you never had that chance at Arctics, right? And that's what I'm noticing now with, some of the athletes who are trying to reach out to colleges, especially during this time. It's like, having tape to send to some of these colleges is nice, and we have social media, which is nice because maybe they can see you through a high school site or something, a high school page or account, but maybe that's something, is maybe finding out, okay, you're in grade 10, you have excellent potential, you're not even close. Is this something that we want to at least keep in the back of our mind? Is it something that we want to pursue at some point? Because if you think it might be an option, we may need to up the expectations. And especially for me as a coach and the way I coach, I've got some very talented grade 10s at Vanier that, that could potentially have that door open for them in grade 12, where, they've got talent, they've got some speed, they can shoot the ball, they're at it, they're starting to fill out a little bit. If in grade 12 you decide that you maybe want to pursue it, it might be too late, right? And so right now in grade 10, summer of grade 10, are we going to start with weight training? For me, and I already talked about my story, but that physical, that running, that getting in shape for a week-long camp in BC, that became very real for me because there's no way I was going to be out of shape and limping on day 3 of a week-long BC camp. So for me, it started early, just with getting comfortable with something extra other than just shooting a ball from half court to the 3-point line. And, nowadays, a lot of kids, and I'll be frank, they want to skip some of those steps, and I'm going to go back to a very early story that I was going to talk about. That grade 10 year, I took 1 3-pointer. Remember I was talking about the stats and averaging 16 or 18. I don't remember that number, but it was like I took 1 3-pointer in grade 10 because back in 80, that would have been 1990, 3-point shooting for kids that young, forget about it. Yeah. That was even in high school. Well, you look at the stats of the NBA in 92, it was a rarity for a guy to shoot 6 or 7, I bet, in a game. And that was reserved for a guy like Steve Kerr. Maybe he would shoot 3 or 5 or 5, 4 or 6, maybe 7. And even in high school, I could shoot the ball pretty well by grade 12. And my career record for threes was 7. And I think I maybe took 9. I have high school guys Last year, well, you would know
Yeah.
that I've had high school that took 14 or 15, and you know some of those guys. But that's okay because they were liable to hit 6 or 7. So if you're 6 out of 13, I can absolutely, that's amazing, actually. That's more than
Up here,
50%.
yeah.
Up here, that's really great. And, you know, and if we as a team, and I kept team stats, you know, as a team, there were games last year in our best games and even the year before where I think we had a couple games where it was like 12 to 14 threes, which is pretty good for high school. That was unheard of back in my day, right? Like if you hit 2 or 3, that was a good game. But you definitely worked from inside and out, and it was earned, right? Nowadays, it's sort of like you're working outside in. You know, it's like the 3-point shot now, and I get it because now we know the efficiency of, but that's NBA. Those are NBA numbers. You know, and the only reason why I like the 3-point shot right now is that it does, you know, it does sort of open up space, but at the same time, you got to earn that right to be a 3-point shooter. It's not just given to you because you can take it. Can you make it? And so, you know, and I know you're doing, you know, with my son at FH, you know, he's loving the individual work and the fundamental work and the footwork and the shooting that, you know, assistant coach Liam's putting him through, because he knows that that's, you know, that's where you need to be able to do that. If your 3-point shot isn't going, what else do you have? You know, and people talk about the death of the mid-range. Well, I've played men's league. I'm playing in 2 men's leagues right now, and we are shooting 3 mid-range shots against that 2-3 zone. If you can't shoot that 15-footer from the middle of that 2-3 in the high post, you know, if you come off a pick and roll and there's a 6-foot, if there's Andrew Jansen in the middle of the key and you're a 5'6" point guard and you round that corner at the top and he sags off you or someone else is in the key help, you're not going to backpedal to the 3. You're going to come and you're going to pull up for that mid-range. And I'm still big on, you know, mid-range shots, not because that's what I grew up with and I still like shooting them, but because it's a progression. It's a progression of 5 feet to 10 feet to 15 feet. Then you can shoot your 23 or 25 footer and my shooting practices, all of them start from in close to out, and then we work our way back and shoot those threes at the very end. So yeah, no, it's going back to that first question again, off on a tangent. I don't know if it's just planting those seeds in a kid's not just head but also in his heart or her heart, that okay, you have the potential to go here, you know, to get to that next level. And are you, you know, just playing basketball, or, you know, do you want more out of it? And, you know, the benefit of sport for me is that it gave me a chance to, you know, to get an education and be inspired to get an education and go somewhere. But it also built a work ethic that I want to believe I could transfer to, you know, my love of golf and cycling and you know, even my job and the time I put into coaching, I think was built because of the time that I put into not just wanting to be an average, you know, basketball player. And so, yeah, it's definitely something that we've talked about, and it's definitely something that UConn, you know, we kids can do a little bit of everything. You know, and you know, we've talked about my son a couple of times, and you know, he loves setting to, you know, some of those kids at FH that he plays volleyball with, and he loves going mountain biking and golfing and doing and he's only in grade 8, but at the same time, you know, grade 9, 10, those are big years when you start hitting those years, and there's some kids at all of our schools that you can see if they really commit. You know, and you've got some bigs at your school that if they want to put some time in and learn how to not just be, you know, a 3-point shooter, but also take advantage of their size down low. There's some athletes there, and you know, Vanier has a fair share too. And you know, I think the potential at that age level is really, really high. And our girls are really, you know, our girls, you know, my Arctic Games team last year, it was such a joy to coach and just be around, because so many of them just loved the game and wanted to actually play beyond high school. And I was like, are you serious? This is amazing. I jumped at the opportunity to coach that team last year, because I knew so many of them, a number from FH, more than half of them, really loved the game and had grown up with it and had success, winning titles and championships and playing against Alaskan teams and beating them. And so they had that commitment, before I got a chance to work with them for a year. And I know this is kind of an aside, but it is something I want to talk about, is that it was, a lot of it was kind of Coach Shaw. Quite honestly, one of the reasons why I told my wife I wanted to try to coach is because I wanted to have a team. And I reached out to all three schools because I wanted a chance to coach kids from all the schools, and we're only coming off a couple of years of him passing, and it didn't quite work out. There was a potential of helping coach a UConn team at some point in the last couple of years, which we won't have to get into some of that stuff from years ago, but it didn't work out for the two of us there, and so this team came along, Arctics here in Whitehorse, and I was like, I'm in. Like, I don't have to travel. I got two younger kids. I can stay here for spring break and just have an awesome time. Maybe have my kid on the bench to watch and my daughter too. But I remember thinking in my head, I want to give back in some way, because I know Shaw, he coached more. I think there was a span of a few years there where he coached all my guys. Like I remember specifically, it was, it was Bryson McLaughlin's team, and it was actually it was Logan Gray's year, and Gavin Clark, and I had a really strong high school team for a year there. Another memorable Porter Creek final, Gavin Clark going up against Logan Beamer, in a final, and they went mano a mano. I think they each had 5 to 7 threes apiece. Were you at that game? Would you have been old enough to be at a final at Porter Creek with Gavin Clark, or they're way too old?
They're way younger.
Or way younger. Sorry, what am I thinking? Way younger, of course, yeah. And they went head to head. It was a lot of fun. But nonetheless, I kind of thought, man, I'm waiting for a team to get in there and just sort of give back a little bit, even if it's just a one-shot deal. And this was the team. And it was because I knew I had Nicole from my school, Tish from my school. I had a really nice group of girls, and all those FH girls, and I jumped at the chance. So maybe to answer your question, I think it might have to be finding those kids that are developing that passion, and instead of just putting them in positions to kind of have it foster, to maybe really maybe get in there and just say, what, speak to them as individuals and not just put them on teams or put them in camps or bring them on trips, but sort of maybe at a more of a heart-to-heart level, say, I think you can do it. But again, it has to be on them to actually kind of go with it, because you certainly don't want a kid, putting time and money in because of you. Like, it's not, don't do it for me, don't do it for, it has to be sort of, we're there just to kind of help maybe pull out that desire, or any, if they have self-doubt, we're there to hopefully build that confidence and that belief to get out and go to an ID camp, or, send that email, and so I don't know if I can say much more than that, because I've certainly tried. I've certainly tried. We've had some really good talent, over the years, and not every athlete kind of wants to take it to that next level. And a few have tried. Absolutely, a few have tried, and if it didn't work out, they haven't regretted at least making the effort. And if they come back to Whitehorse and they dominate, the Filipino League or the Whitehorse Men's League, and they are loving the game and they're giving back and coaching, then, part of me thinks we've still done the right thing. And I know both our two schools for sure have kids who have, come back to coach, and, they got our grade 8s and they're working with them. And I had a few guys from last year reach out and, can we help coach grade 8? And they did, this year. I don't know if it's just a little more explicit, here's what I think you can do, and let's see if we can spend the next couple of years trying to get you there. Yeah, that's a tough question.
Okay. So you brought up Jamie Shaw before, and one thing, and I'm very curious to get your perspective on it, and this is more of like a small rural place that's more isolated, but they have a few high schools. Jamie mentioned about the theory of having one traveling team. So not just having each three high school, combining one team Yukon, if you will, for the high school season, and then you have everybody else to play in the high schools. So you get another team essentially, and they wouldn't be playing up here. They'd be trying to travel out as much, trying to pursue more excellence and high level. What are your thoughts on that? Do you ever thought about
it's come up a few times over the years, right? Where this idea of like a Yukon team that could train at their level. Like, let's be honest, everyone is sort of at a different spot in their development. And so to have a team like that, similar to what you would see, with our hockey squads or our travel rep teams for soccer, like indoor soccer during the winter, and that way those kids make each other better, and the kids who aren't quite at that level get coaching that will develop them at their level. Yeah. Now, in terms of actually the reality of it, I'm torn, man. I'm torn because I could see wanting to be a part of that team as a coach, not necessarily being in charge of it, but as a developmental piece. Whenever I've played the role of assistant, I love the idea of pulling kids and just working on individual skills, and I don't have to worry about systems or defenses. So I could absolutely see, and again, as I've mentioned, I love the idea of working with kids from all three schools. I only had one session with Arlo from Porter Creek there 2 summers ago, and we went and shot at Porter Creek, and we got to know each other one summer at with the Wolfpack crew, and we shot around. We worked on one-on-one and some post play, and I know his dad, and I was like, it was awesome. It was great. And it's funny because I'm coaching these guys that will one day possibly beat Vanier, but at the same time, there's nothing wrong with that because it means my guys need to get better. In terms of Team Yukon, but I'm also torn because I still love the idea of the not Vanier as like beating FH or Porter Creek, but just the school representation piece. Yeah. Right. And so that's where, most importantly, I like having my team that I can communicate, and I'm in constant communication with my team through MS Teams now or Instagram. The girls I've coached, we've had our own channels where we have a team thread, and I can post video. And I see these boys in the hall, and I can have them become leaders on that team and be that role model that, Joe was for me, or that hopefully I was to maybe some younger guys. And I don't want to lose that piece either, because wearing, you've got your FH gear. I'm not wearing any right now, but, I don't want to miss that either. Now, is there a way to maybe still do both? Somehow I would be more open to that, I would say, but as a separate rep squad and losing them, I'm maybe 50% there, but I'm also 50%. I don't want to lose it. Yeah. But I understand, because going back to our conversation about how do we get those kids to just get to another level, and if they did have an opportunity and the financial means and the support to actually travel, then maybe I'd be like, ooh, okay, here we go. If it's just, 1 or 2 tournaments, it'd be different. Yeah. Hockey rep teams, like, they're gone like 4 days. They're gone 4 or 5 tournaments sometimes in a season. And it is a commitment financially and time-wise. So I can kind of get why maybe they don't play house league, right? Or maybe they do and they can balance both. I've always been in those conversations, and a little bit, I've never been able to go one way or another. I'm sort of torn, and that's just the nature of kind of where we are. And, even having a son that has played on rep teams for soccer, to balance 2 days of soccer, rep, plus 2 days of like house league, like just for fun, to play with friends and not be pressured to have to train hard or compete, and then to throw in an afternoon at SEMA, right? It's tough. And right now he's at a point now because of you and the fact that he's in grade 8 now, he wants to represent his high school. I can see him wanting to be a Warrior and he would be torn between, I would say, being torn between a territory team and a school, especially if there was conflict there. And we've always tried to work with all the different groups to try to make sure that no high school kid has to make that choice.
Yeah.
And whether it's time, but sometimes practices they conflict. And I will almost always say, hey, put your high school team first. I almost always am okay with that. Like, you don't come to my practice if you have an FH girls practice. And that happened last year, actually, with Arctics. You go to your FH practice, and at 9:00, if you can, you come to mine. And so I would have girls come to Vanier for a late shoot around or something, but they would never miss their FH practice. And I was the same way with my senior girls. They had their practice in the big gym. I was in the small gym. They would come to me after for Arctics. But that just meant I needed to have an actual team practice at least once or twice a week outside of that. So, I'm kind of torn, man. But the idea would be fantastic. But I still want them to compete. And maybe it's because I like the idea that I can still try to impact them in a positive way as a high school coach. And so, yeah. Why? How are you feeling about the prospect?
It's funny because I brought up, because I kind of had this much smaller conversation with Jamie. Mm-hmm. I kind of moved up about the competing and stuff once I was up here for a little bit. And he kind of had the same sentiment as you had, like that. Like, I say he's maybe 60-40 towards like having a development traveling team. Yeah. But then you can make a strong argument. Yeah. And about the school pride as well. But make a strong argument that it's better to have the school system. And then basketball UConn takes over the other side of it. Yeah.
In a perfect world, you would have and there could be a total understanding in a perfect world that maybe that UConn team, especially if the stakes are a little higher, if there is travel and there's commitment, then that's the priority there. And even and absolutely, and and
like the financial piece would be a big. The only way I think
and if it's financial, then you're committed to Team UConn, like you are a UConn kid, and that's fine.
And if you get the finances, so it wasn't overbearing for a lot of them, and then you could get into BC provincials, and you actually played a BC schedule.
That would be. Then I could see. Okay, now this is legit. Like this is really. If it's more like a team, if it's more like Arctic Winter Games, then I'm like, ooh, no. Like if you're preparing for an Arctic Games and you're committing to that, I'm not sure how many kids would necessarily choose Team UConn. I'm not sure if we'd end up just splitting them, right? Yeah. And I don't know, because there are some kids that would, no, like to see you guys, like when you guys won that game, I saw a picture of it. Where did I see a picture of it? Was it on your Instagram page maybe?
Or maybe Instagram page.
Yeah, or I can't remember where I saw it. Maybe it was Instagram page or something recently in the last, semester. Seeing the amount of pride that you guys had winning that first one was pretty special, right? And you would never want to take a team, like that's more meaningful than almost any, even an Arctics win, right? Like, and I know, winning Arctics or coming second in Arctics, I haven't won an Arctics, but, it would be different. I think it's just a little bit different. And I harken back to my tremendous years in high school and maybe I kind of want to recreate that a little bit, at the high school level, and maybe make it something memorable and I don't know.
Okay. I have one
more. Oh, I love it. I love talking hoops, man.
One more question. Well, this is a personal question.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And you need to be totally honest.
Honest.
You coach at a different school than what your son's attending.
Yep. Oh, wow. Yeah.
3 or 4 years from now, he's in grade 11, grade 12. Yep. Hopefully he develops, he's a good player.
Yeah.
He destroys your team and wins the game for FH in the championship. Yeah. He single-handedly, he probably has talked to you so many times with strategy. He single-handedly wins the game for his team. Are you happy as a parent
Oh
that
my
your son's doing so
God.
good?
That's an easy
Or-
answer.
Or
Yeah, go ahead.
would you be more happy as a coach if you could then beat him?
No, I would be parent first.
You would be a parent first.
Oh my God. No, I will absolutely do everything I can over the next few years to help him beat us. 100%. 100%. And it's just as a parent, he plays a lot with those Wolfpack kids, and he came to it late. Like, again, this is a perfect example of what we're talking about. Is as a parent, he wasn't gonna play basketball because of me. Like, I'm gonna put the hoop in the front yard, take him to a Clipper game when he was a kid. We went, I took him to NBA Summer League a couple summers ago, and he got a picture with Jean Morant and Shaq O'Neal, and Zion's in the background of one of the pictures because we couldn't get close to him. But he, he likes soccer, he likes skiing, he likes golf, he liked all those sports before basketball. He's not the biggest kid, but some of the best players in the history of UConn in 21 years have been some of the smallest kids on the floor. And I've coached many of them, and they're phenomenal. They got big heart, and it makes up for what they may lack in size. So there's no doubt that I think, he can make a difference but at the same time, and going back to your question, I would absolutely love to see him beat us. We have some amazing kids his age. So it's going to be a challenge, and I'll do everything I can to help Vanier win. Now, in terms of actually coaching against him, I don't think I will, though. I don't think I'll coach against him.
Really?
So this is all big. Yeah, I can't
You
see
say that now.
No, Andrew,
but-
I am
No?
almost
Okay.
positive that for those however many years you pull him, if you pull him up early, especially in grade 11, grade 12, I won't. I don't think I'll coach against him. If anything, I will help him.
So you're gonna come coach at FH?
No, I won't
This
coach
is
at
what-
FH.
Oh, okay.
I will
Just
coach a
check.
different group. I'll coach the girls if I can, or the
Okay.
younger boys, or grade 8s. I would not want to scheme against my own son. I don't think.
Yeah.
But my neighbor is Quinn, one of your big boys,
Yeah.
and I'm committed. As the summer, he's asked me if I could work with him, and because he lives he's across the street. He's literally one house across and to the right, and he shot on my hoop, and he's got a hoop in his yard too, and we'll be out all summer working, shooting on when we can. There's nothing set in stone, but he was at the CGC playing with me and some Vanier boys not too long ago, and he took it to some of my seniors. He was taking it to some of my seniors, and we worked on some very basic one-on-one moves because his form has really improved. I think I'm going to give you guys credit for taking his shot from being something back here,
From the
more of a
slingshot that it
throw,
was?
yeah,
Yeah.
to something that's just a little bit more upwards trajectory. And I'm like, that's the shot, because you're strong enough to slingshot it, but that's not a conducive shot to actually shooting in games with different types of options, especially if you're going to add a pickup, pull-up dribble, or a step back. You can't slingshot. You can't catapult. You're going to have to bring it up through your face instead of behind. And so, if I can help Quinn and Chris be a pick and roll nightmare for Vanier, and I know Chris loves playing with Jason and John. He's coming home every day telling me about something John did, and I know he looks up to Liam and Ralph, and that's he's following in, and I want him to feel that way about all those kids at your school, and I would love for him to take down Vanier one day. It would be awesome. I would be so proud, actually. Especially since I'm telling myself right now that I will not be coaching against him. And I know we're going to have good teams. So if it happens, it'll be a phenomenal battle. And I think it'll be a battle in the years to come. I really do. I think we have some talent at our school, but if FH's core group can and you're putting time into them, so I think it'll be a good battle. I think we're gonna have years of good hoops. Yeah.
I think so too. And if they do win, if FH does beat them,
Yeah.
that clip that you just had will be shared.
I love it. I love it.
throughout.
No, that would be fantastic. That would be, and of course, let's not leave out Porter Creek. I mean, Porter Creek will be there too. And sometimes, when you have some of the best years I've ever coached have been teams that have been, the underdog or not necessarily, not necessarily at the forefront right away. So we're talking a lot about our schools because obviously we teach at them, and my kid goes to FH. But no, I've had so many learning experiences trying to keep up, and even last year, like Porter Creek they were awesome last year, and learned a lot from losing to those guys. And so yeah, no, it'll be great. I'm excited for the next few years for sure.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. We are now going to do our draft.
Yeah.
So
I'm ready.
I talked to you about this. We gave some different options, and we decided to go with. We're going to do 4 rounds. So you're the first 4-round person we've done.
Cool.
Everyone else is usually 3 rounds.
Cool.
And we are doing the best ever draft. Sorry, we're doing a 3-on-3 team with a sub, but we're taking players that were never NBA All-Stars.
Yeah.
So this will be interesting.
Are you going right off the top of your head? Like you got your names already?
I got some things. I have my phone as a
I
backup
actually have
if
my
need.
phone ready. Yeah.
But the thing you don't know is we've done a draft earlier. We did one with Jeremy, best 6'3" and under.
Wow. Cool.
And producer Liam, this is not a strength of his.
No.
And that is an understatement.
Okay.
So I think out of mercy and / morbid curiosity to see what he's going to pick.
Oh no.
Okay.
I think he should go first. And then my question for you is, do you want to go second or third? Now it'll serpentine. So if you go third, you have the fourth pick back.
Snake draft.
What are you feeling?
You know what? Wow, this is great. Second, third. You know what? I'll go. Wow, there is strategy, isn't there?
Oh, there is strategy.
You know what? I'm gonna go second.
You're going to take a second
I'll
pick?
go second.
Okay.
I'll go second.
So, producer Liam, this is
it.
going to be a train wreck.
Okay, so,
What?
well, we have a little disclosure that I don't really watch too much NBA.
Okay.
Don't really know much history to basketball and all that. I don't think I mentioned that when we did it with Jeremy, so it probably made me look extra dumb.
Did you have to do research for this topic then? Like non-NBA All-Stars is kind of a big deal, right?
I forgot to.
Okay, you throw in a name and we'll try to.
Yeah, so that's what's going to be happening.
Okay.
So I'm just going to go along the lines of our last draft.
Oh God.
for names I know. So to start off, I'm going to go with has old Isaiah Thomas played on an All-Star?
Okay, we may be here a while. He was an all-star.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Multiple times.
What about younger Isaiah?
That I don't know.
He was. Oh, maybe not.
Honestly,
Oh, here we go.
you know what?
Maybe not.
Honestly, I can't say about younger Isaiah Thomas. We may need to. We may need to look that one up because
we'll check that one.
Yeah, no, you know what, Liam, this is a good learning opportunity because when Coach mentioned this as a topic, I knew a few, but I needed to look it up because I mean, this goes back decades, right? And there are guys that you think were all-stars that weren't, or vice versa.
2-time.
Really?
16 and 17.
Okay. Liam, you're going to have to give us another name, man.
I know what. Can I make a prediction? Liam, you want to see your thunder on who your next pick is going to be?
Well, you can't steal my thunder.
Okay, you take it.
Okay, go.
You mentioned him earlier in the pod. There's your hint.
Joel Mueller? No, he never made it to the NBA. Wow, NBA player. Help me out.
Steve Kerr.
Wow, okay. Is he on my list? He was on one of the lists I saw online.
He was on your list?
He was on a list that I saw online of guys who had never been All-Stars. So Steve Kerr, okay, you're going to go with half court. I like it. We're going 3-on-3 half court. So that's a great shot because he's not going to great choice. He's not going to be worrying about going up and down the floor against athletes. So 3-on-3 is a different game too. I like this. I often say dare to prepare, right? Or even dare to over prepare, which is one reason why I love coaching. I'm going to go, I guess second pick, I'm going to go with a guy, and I'll turn this into a little story. I saw him play live in the late 90s. I should know this year, but I don't. My two best friends and I went to the old Key Arena in Seattle.
Oh, I think you're taking my guy.
To see Kevin Durant play the Los Angeles Lakers live. Kobe was on that team. Lamar Odom was a member. He's not an All-Star. I looked it up.
He's not. You're right.
He's not. Lamar Odom. I'm going Lamar because I'm a Laker fan, longtime Laker. I saw Lamar play live at 6'8" or 9", and he was amazing. He was again, ahead of his time. A 6'9" that could do everything on the floor. Kobe had more points. Kevin Durant was awesome as a rookie. Just a freak in nature, unicorn as they say. But Lamar Odom was the most impressive physical specimen in that game because of the length, the size, the versatility. And I know that he has never been an All-Star, so I'm going Lamar.
So that's a good pick, but I think you're going to kick yourself when I take my next pick.
I have a list. Okay. Oh, I know who you're picking. A lefty?
No.
Oh, who are you going?
A bit more old school.
Oh my God.
I would say the first Nikola Jokic before came over late.
Oh, I know who you're picking.
Oh.
Arvydas Sabonis.
He's my second pick.
Oh, he was your second pick.
He's my second pick on here. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. When I said Seattle though, I was like, wait a minute, he didn't play for Seattle.
He played in Portland and Seattle.
Portland,
played.
Seattle. Yeah.
So I thought there was
that's
back in
a really good pick. Yeah.
Yeah, and even though Liam, to fill you in.
Fill you in.
Yeah.
He's 7'3". He's from Russia or Serbia?
Yeah, one of the two. In that part of the world.
He
Russia,
was a phenomenal passer, and he played most of his time before he came to the NBA overseas in his good years. And I think he came over at 32. His knees were shot.
Already.
He was already washed up, and he was still a decent player in the NBA. But in his younger days, he was phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
And if you knew basketball. Geez, and you're a student of the game. I love it because I'm older than Andrew, and I was into the game already by that point. Late '80s for sure. And he was the Iron Curtain had not fallen yet. No. So any Soviet athlete, whether it's hockey, that whole Tretiak and all the Russian Red Army teams, and Arvydas Sabonis was one of them. That who is this guy? And the Russians at the Olympic level, because you didn't have pros playing. These guys had made their name at that level, right? For sure. So Sabonis is my number 2. He would have been my number 2 pick. Now you get 2 in a row though.
I do, and then you're coming up, I'm gonna see.
Okay.
If you're gonna, I'm going Europe again.
Wow. Okay, I know who you're going.
He's at least a 2 or 3 time champion with the Bulls.
Okay, yeah.
At least two, I think.
I think he came over in 96.
He's on my list.
Tony Kukoc.
Yeah.
And there's a funny story about this. So Steve Kerr was on Open Court. Have you seen Open Court?
I've never seen Open Court.
Oh.
No.
Lately it's kind of an but in the first 15, 20 episodes, it started dropping in 2014.
Huh?
Steve Kerr goes out for a pregame meal with Tony Kukoc when he first comes over. Tony Kukoc eats an appetizer, a full meal, cheesecake, 2 espressos, everything loads up. And Steve's like, what are you doing? How are you going to play a game? He's like, no. In Europe, we go and we have big giant meal, and then we take big giant crap and we go play basketball. And that was Steve Kerr's
that was his introduction.
This is European basketball.
Yeah. Tony's a great pick. Again, I mean, growing up, Laker fan. My best friend Scott, this guy, I've mentioned him a few times. He's one of the guys that went to the game in Seattle. He was a Bulls fan, so I hated the Bulls, but I respected MJ. How could you not? Yeah. And we wanted even if you said you hated the Bulls or MJ, deep down you're like, oh my God, I'd love to play like him. And Tony was. Again, he was ahead of his time. Pippen was too. You've seen The Last Dance, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
That team legit was. You had all these playmakers, all these great defenders, all these long 6'6" to 6'9" guys. Tony, I think, was 6'10". Did you just mention his height?
I know, 6'9", 6'10".
6'10", and pass first, but he had a little bit of a touch from outside. European, he had that, there was a reputation, right? A little soft, right? European, but at the same time, just a phenomenal player. That's an awesome pick, especially for like a half-court game, 2 or 3-on-3. That's why I like Lamar too. I think Lamar could do a lot of things off pick and roll and drive and not have to do much. Okay, that's a great pick.
Because Lamar was third on my list, and he was my Tony Kukoc's backup.
See, okay, I'm looking at my list. Yeah, Tony was a little further down. He wasn't on my. Now, obviously, we've got guys that are like present players that have never been All-Stars.
True.
Right? Did you factor this in your?
Oh, 100%.
Okay, good.
Mike Connolly just became. He was arguably the best
Fair
player.
enough. Yep.
But now this year he became an All-Star. So.
Yeah, he was a late. Was he a late pick?
Yeah, he was like a second or third injury addition.
Okay, there's one. I'm gonna go with a modern. I'm gonna go with a modern guy that's playing right now that I'm certain has not been an All-Star, and I'm going CJ McCollum. You want to look it up?
I think you're right. I think that's I did look it up. That's a good
I'm
pick.
positive there are other
list.
old school guys on here that have accomplished more, but I actually love his game. Yeah. I just, and again, I'm kind of going, personal coaching style. I tell guys all the time that, seeing LeBron and Giannis and Zion on the internet, on your phones is awesome, but they're not guys that you necessarily really should emulate. Because they're just free. They really are freaks of nature. 100%. But when it comes to like Bradley Beal and CJ McCollum and like the ability to go one-on-one with skill and shot fakes and footwork, those are the guys I really enjoy watching the most. And Kyrie's in there. And you know what? I hate to say it, Harden has a few moves that he's mastered, but he's not overpowering anyone with his vert. And he can shoot.
No, he is strong.
But he's really strong for so he knows how to use his body, and he's absolutely strong. He's a guy that'll, I don't know if he's ever been badly injured because he's just got that strength for sure, all around strength. So I'm gonna go CJ. I just love his game. He's underrated. He's never been an All-Star. In part, it's tough playing with Dame, and in the Western Conference, it's been really tough. And he started the year before that injury this year.
Balling.
He would have been an All-Star, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Eh?
He was
top 5 in scoring, I think. And his three-point shooting was, I think, over 50% on like 13 shots a game or something like this. So I'm going, even though he's not on the top list, a lot of the ones I researched, I'm going CJ because I absolutely love his game, and I talk about it all the time. Liam? You're up, man. You're
back to back picks.
So you've got some good size there.
So I had an epiphany that I don't know that many players, because I think most of the players I know have been in All-Star games. So I've gone to Google. I'm gonna try one. I don't know if he's been in All-Star
game.
And
you get 2 in a row here, so you can make your starting lineup. Right now, I think you're in trouble, though.
I don't think it's looking too well for me. But has Dennis Rodman been in an All-Star game?
Wow.
I don't know. That's actually not a bad pick in a 3-on-3. He's going to get every board.
Yeah, and he can defend our
Yeah.
guy. Like a heyday Sabonis, he might have trouble with, especially in 3-on-3 half court, because this 7-3 Andrews pick, he was legendary.
Yeah.
Dennis Rodman, I don't think he made an All-Star team.
Oh, he did.
He did.
90 and 92.
He made one.
Okay,
And,
he made two.
And two all NBA third teams.
Oh man, sorry,
I did not
Liam.
expect
Do you have
that.
another name on there? I can't. Okay.
All right, to the list.
Okay, well, he was like a 16 rebound a game guy, right? In his heyday. I guess it's hard to ignore. And his defense was phenomenal. Okay, that's surprising. Okay, let's see what
I was surprised by that too, but that was back in his...
Now I'm just going off of names I recognize.
Yeah, you might have to go with a name you recognize, man. There might be a couple.
We're going to go with Marc Gasol.
Okay.
Oh!
Marc Gasol. Wait a minute. Are you on a list of like guys who... Okay, if he's on a list...
Is this legit? Yeah.
I think it might be legit.
He's on a list.
Because I just keep going to Wikipedia and checking.
Heyday Marc Gasol.
That's a good pick.
I think that's a good pick. Yeah. You've got some size.
Liam, you want to hear the bad news though?
What?
3-time All-Star.
What?
What list are you on right now, man? What's
2012, 2015, 2017?
Only players who did not play the NBA All-Star game.
Are you sure it's Mark, not Powell? No, it's Mark. Right?
No, this is Marcus.
That's Marcus.
All-NBA first team in 2015 when he won Defensive Player of the Year too.
Oh, that's right. Some people say he took LeBron believes he may have taken his Defensive Player of the Year. Or
the Defensive Player was 2013, but
yeah. I didn't know he was that.
He was pretty good in those Memphis.
He was
grit and grind years with Zach Randolph and Conley, and they just pounded the crap out of everybody.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right, man. You're right. All right, Liam. 2 picks. What do we got? We'll tell you if it's a
Liam, do you want me to show you the bottom of my list that you can...
Oh, sure. Let's take the bottom. I'm getting a new list. Screw that list.
Yeah, you might need a new list, man.
Liam, I'm going to help you out with this one.
Okay.
Do you remember from the 3-on-3... So the reason I knew that Liam was going to take... After the 2 Isaiahs, he was going to take Steve Kerr is because that's what happened in the Germany draft. When we drafted 6'3" and under, there's 3 players.
Nice.
So, do you remember who I took on my team who's a good role player? He's a guard, he can post up. He doesn't shoot threes well. He played for Denver. He played for Cleveland. He was drafted by Cleveland. Great, one of the best post-up guards I've ever seen. He's retired now. He was in the league from...
I can't remember his name.
Came in 97. You don't remember who I'm talking about?
I remember you talking about it. I can't remember his name.
Andre Miller.
He's on my list. I forgot who drafted him. Yeah.
I'll take Andre Miller as my...
Okay.
Now I have to find another one.
And now your next one.
You might need a little more size, man. You might need a little more size.
Or he's going to double down on the guard play. And just go extreme modern, just space.
Yeah, exactly.
Space and
shoot those threes.
Andre Miller doesn't shoot the three well.
Yeah, that's true. He never did. Yeah. See, speaking of old Joel Mueller, right? Andre Miller. Yeah. Cerebral. Actually, right, cerebral, right?
But Joel never shot the ball well.
No, he wasn't a great shooter. You're right. I remember having some mid-range, though.
I played him after
and maybe some float game. Did he have a float game? Yeah, maybe a float game. But
he would post up.
Yeah.
He would post me up, and he got me one time. He did a drop step, and he got his leg there before I moved. He dropped his leg early. Wow. And then I tried to move, and I just ran into his quad. Oh, and I wasn't moving. He pinned me and sealed me good when I was fresh off the boat.
All right.
Liam, you got a pick?
It's funny you remember that.
Yeah, my list has chosen. Hopefully this doesn't fail me.
Oh, Lord.
Lamar Odom.
Okay. Well, this is kind of awkward. Lamar Odom, Liam, was my first pick. Maybe I only said his name once. No. You know what? As producer, you have a big job, Liam. You have a big job. You're multitasking. I just saw
he looked a bit bigger.
Yeah, he's a long guy. Like I said, I saw him live.
Anybody listening, if you want to come in for a draft instead of producer Liam, please call.
So I've got 5 concussions, so I got no short-term memory.
No, I've got Lamar, and I've gone with a 6'3" combo guard.
Okay, well this guy seems smaller, but
who do you got, man?
Hopefully no one picked him. Ron Harper.
No, that's good. That's a good legit kick.
You know what?
Congratulations.
There we go.
He's on my list. We'll just stop you right there. So you're going with a member of one of the three-peat Laker teams. Good pick.
And in the Bulls championship.
Sorry, not Laker, Bulls.
But then he played for the Lakers.
But then he did play for the Lakers. My bad. Yeah, he was a Laker for a little bit, and I think he was a Cav before that, wasn't he?
Yeah, he played on the Cavs.
Cavs before that. Yeah,
that's in the picture. That's how I know that.
Yeah, he was a Cav before that. Before moving over to his rival, the rival Bulls. So, okay, my third pick. Wow, I like my team. So I'm going with another guy who played for the Lakers, who was a sweet shooting lefty with size. So 6 foot, I think he was 6'8" or 9 as well. So I've got a nice long team, not particularly quick by any stretch. I don't know if I'm going to match up here with Andrew's team when all is said and done, but I'm going for big size rebounding, and I do have a soft spot for a guy named Sam Perkins.
Ooh,
Sam Perkins. Yeah, never an All-Star.
He was the next one on my list.
And he's on the list. Sam Perkins. Yeah. He had a Euros type game, to him a little bit. He wasn't a banger, but with McCollum being my guard, I've got the two long former Lakers at one point. Do I have 2 lefties? I think Lamar's a lefty too. Actually.
Lamar is a lefty. Yeah,
I've got 2 lefties on
your
this
team. Left-handed here.
So I like my squad so far. I've got some, and Sam Perkins was he had a sleepy look to him, but man, he could hit some outside shots and do some damage around the basket too. Not in like I said, a power way, but yeah. So what do you got? You got 2 big picks here.
So
to finalize your team, right?
There's one player because I thought I thought you'd take the second pick after Liam took the first pick, and I thought you were going to
Yeah.
take Sabonis first, so I had a backup player,
Okay,
but I don't want to
okay.
go too big. So
I've got one.
I might leave this for
I'm pointing at it.
you after.
I'm pointing at it. Let's see if you got it.
No, I'm not going to take him now because I got back-to-back picks.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to go big. I'll save him. I'll help you out with Liam. He'll be good for you.
Okay.
I've got 3.
I need a guard though to match up.
Okay.
And I got 3 on my radar. I got a Mike Bibby. I got a Jason Terry, and I got a Brent Barry.
Wow. Okay, Brent. Okay. Yeah,
So-
I saw Brent on the list, not on my list though. But you can go with whomever you want.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh, and I'm sorry. There's one other player that's actually above those on my list.
I know.
I'm going to take him. This is my official.
Okay.
I'm going to take Rod Strickland.
Yeah. I was
He was a
pointing.
good-
Yeah.
I don't know him that well. I didn't watch him as much play, but
Buckets.
he looked like a scorer.
Yeah.
And if you look
Yeah,
at the
buckets,
stuff, and I
man.
hate looking at stats, but
Yeah.
when you read reviews about him,
I think if old school guys for sure, because he would have been before your generation, before you. So Rod Strickland was the equivalent of like a Jamal Crawford. He was like a Jamal Crawford, like just heated up. I think he was
check always.
Yeah, heat check. Definitely, I don't think he was ever a 6-man, but he was definitely a heat check guy. He was like Portland. He made his name in Portland, and I was pointing at there's a range of like 4 names that I have here, and he's in that 4 that I was thinking you might go for because he's in my next tier for sure. No, that's a great pick for this. And him and McCollum as 2 trailblazers going back and forth would be sweet.
See, our team's got interesting matchups. We got Perkins Sabonis going head to head.
Sabonis would be tough to stop, though, I think.
Yeah, but Perkins is like going to pull him out too a little bit. And Sabonis is
slow. True.
Sabonis is slow.
Even in his heyday, I think Sabonis.
And then you got Odom and Kukoc, who are slightly different. Odom's more a playmaker. Kukoc is a bit more of a scorer.
They can shoot a 3.
But and then we got McCollum.
Yeah.
And Strickland. They're both scorers.
And neither one, I think, were known for their defense. So they'd be a good matchup. Yeah, that'd be a sweet matchup there. Okay, your last pick is key here.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with a swing or a guard because in case Sabonis is too slow, we got to sub him out.
Yeah.
He's probably got great conditioning.
Yeah, I've got one here.
I'm going to have to, and you're going to hate this statement.
If you take this guy, but
No, I'm not going to take the player.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to take Mike Bibby. And the reason is back in those 0-2 Kings days, they should have won. Kobe elbowed him in the face in Game 6 of the Western Conference Finals. The Lakers shouldn't have won. Liam, you have no idea what I'm talking about. It was like a travesty at the time.
The Kings were must-see
They should have
TV,
won.
man. The Kings were must-see TV. No, those were years that I legit feared. I don't think that if you're a Laker fan during those years, we gotta almost do just an NBA pod one of these days. Yeah, like those Kings teams with Chris Webber's always been one of my favorite players too.
Yeah,
because I grew up in the early '90s with those Michigan. That was a formative. I never even got a chance, Andrew, to talk about my love of college ball during those high school years. But nonetheless. Yeah, with Peja and him and Bibby. Bibby was a gamer, man. Yeah. Bibby was a gamer.
And Doug Christie was like that
Doug
walk-on
Christie
defender.
was awesome as an all-around guy. See, I'm picking a Doug
Divac.
Christie. Oh, I forgot about Vladdy. Yeah, I forgot because he was a Laker before that.
And they had Hito Turkoglu coming off bench. They were loaded.
Yeah, they were loaded. They deserved more than what they got. And you're right, Kings fans will never forgive what I guess the refs for giving Kobe,
Kobe just
that series,
and they won it.
Yeah. Oh man. So I get my last pick. Yeah, no, that's a really great pick. Yeah, that's a good pick, man. I'm gonna go with a guy that I actually did not. See, here's my coach's hat. I'm gonna go with a guy that I was never a huge fan. But you mentioned Doug Christie. This guy has size, athleticism. He was on some very good Nets teams with Jason Kidd and I think Kenyon Martin, the senior, and I guess his son's not going to make it to the NBA potentially. But I'm going with an athlete. Not great at necessarily any one thing.
Where you're going.
I'm going with Richard Jefferson.
Arizona product, 2000.
Yeah.
He was my other one I was thinking about, but he doesn't shoot well enough.
Well, that's just it. That's why I said I couldn't remember if he could shoot, athletic, defend, and just get on the just be an all-around good player. And never made an all-star team. And I listened to him on some podcasts because he was interviewed either by Bill Simmons or one of the NBA podcast guys, and I was listening to him talk about the NBA. So he was fresh in my mind, and I'm still torn because I don't have like it'll be a good matchup between our two teams, I think.
I think so too.
So I'm going Richard Jefferson, and I've always had a little bit of a soft spot for Arizona. A little bit. I like Arizona as Steve Kerr. Bibby's an Arizona guy.
Yeah.
Wasn't he?
Oh.
Wasn't he? And I've been to Tucson twice and on campus during the Final Four tournament. I was there one spring break. I got my Arizona hat, and I've always liked Lute Olson coach there, and I've always liked Arizona. They've been awesome for years. A little controversy there with Sean Miller recently, but yeah.
Well,
no.
Here's an interesting thing too. You can choose the player from any time. So I was thinking like Mike Bibby back in the day, he was a good shooting guard.
Yeah.
Have you seen Mike Bibby in the last like 2 or 3 or 4 years?
How jacked he is?
Oh my lord!
As an older guy, yeah, I have.
So Mike Bibby's in his 40s. He's 6'3". He's in his 40s now, and his arms are probably like your entire torso.
Huge. Yeah,
he probably benches like 600 pounds.
I've seen those
It's
pics.
insane.
But what are they Photoshop? They look it, but I guess
because he's been coaching and stuff like that.
He's been coaching.
He's probably wearing like quadruple 6X probably.
That's awesome.
But you could choose also Richard Jefferson, because I was thinking you could choose young athletic Richard Jefferson, or you could go older, seasoned, like 2014, 2015 can shoot the three well, but not as much hop.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, which one do I get to pick? I was thinking more the athletic.
I would probably go with the
guard
one,
anything guy, and then rely on my skill, my Odom and Perkins to be more of a skilled half court guy. So that was my coach's head. What do you got, Liam? Here's your last pick.
Liam,
buddy.
do you want help with this, or because?
Well, I was looking at Richard Jefferson before. I had him up on screen.
Sorry, buddy.
Do you want a good post defender?
Yeah.
One that I would have taken.
I need a big guy.
If we were playing in the 1990s, I would have him with Arvydas Sabonis.
Oh, yeah. I know who you're going to say.
He was drafted by the Raptors in 1996, second overall.
Yeah.
Liam does not understand this.
I know who you're... Yeah, this
Marcus Camby.
Yeah.
So he played for a long time. I believe he was actually left-handed too, so he should have been on your team apparently.
Left-handed, yeah.
But he was an all-NBA defender in the post. An okay passer, not a bad facilitator.
Marcus Camby, is he on your phone right there?
Yeah.
No, when you said, like, I had, my finger was next to Jefferson, Camby, Strickland, and Terry. So when you were making your, like, I guess it would have been your second, third picks, I was like, that's where my thumb was like, one of those, you're going to pick either two or one. And I was thinking maybe Camby especially in a half court, like, to defend the key, or for me defending Sabonis, I thought maybe Camby would be the guy. But then he would play the Knicks for a little bit. Had some success. He was okay there.
Yeah, no, he was good.
Yeah, awesome.
I was really depending on Dennis Rodman not being in the All-Star game.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
So we did one with Jeremy, and Liam got annihilated. I would say Liam got annihilated on this one.
Do you remember the lineups for your?
Yeah.
Are you 6'3"?
We made a little faux pas. So we did 6'3" or under.
6'3" or under, yeah.
Yeah. And so my team, if I remember correctly, was Andre Miller, Dwayne Wade, and I had another really explosive player that was a really good shooter. I forget. And then Jeremy had another role player that he took as well. And then he had Derrick Rose. I'm forgetting everybody else. Yeah. But we made a major faux pas. We forgot
Rose, Steve Nash.
Like Iverson, Nash.
We talked about, he took Steve Nash too. Yeah, he didn't mention the first pick. We didn't take Iverson because of stuff.
Yeah.
No one took Dame. No, I don't think we didn't take. No one took Steph Curry.
Oh my god!
And then I get a text message from Jeremy.
Wow.
About like 2 hours later, and he's like, "We shouldn't talk basketball anymore." So I can't remember what it was because none of us took Steph Curry, and he's like, "I was just hitting myself in the head."
Gosh, what a run! Yeah, no, I had a conversation with a teacher at school because we talk hoops all the time, and for the longest time I was like, I just want Steph to at some point put a team on his back, because right now he's never been able to, and this stretch he just finished, or he's still in it, he could still be in it, has been just out of this world, and this is the Steph that I think a lot of people are like, you've always had some guys that you could rely on and help get you open shots, and it's like, okay, this is pretty legit. But he's also evolved too.
But the thing I love about Steph Curry, and the golden words, but Steph Curry especially, is it's so ISO heavy, and like give them the ball and stand there and watch. Yeah. And he moves off the ball better than anybody. And
absolutely, yeah.
I don't like that kids think that they can, I can shoot from half court because Steph can.
Exactly, logo, yeah.
But the movement that he does, and He's 6'3" and 170
I know,
pounds. He's
I know.
scrawny. He's
I know.
not the most athletic guy.
Yeah,
Anybody can beat him with hard work.
absolutely.
And he's like,
Absolutely.
so for anybody like that,
Yep.
he's like a great role model. And he's a great player to emulate,
Oh.
except for the deep shooting range, because
Yeah,
that is not
it's just
human.
not real. It's just not. No, and that's exactly right. And that's exactly right. And the same thing with Dame, right?
Yeah.
Dame has that logo distance, but if you look at his footwork, if you look at the fact that he can beat a guy off the dribble and get to the rack. Like part of Steph Curry's brilliance is that his finishing around the rim, knowing that he's not going to jump over anyone. He's not Ja Morant. You know, his finishing around the rim, same with Kyrie, is just unbelievable. The way they can use angles. Nash was the same way. You know, the way they can use either hand and inside, outside foot, just to depending on how they want to use their body to kind of shield from shot blockers. Steph, for anyone here who loves their social media, if you're a House of Highlights fan, just from either last night or the night before, Steph dropped another 40 points in his last game or something like this, and he ended up out of bounds on a couple of shots. Yeah. The highlight package they showed was him coming off those screens and those dribble handoffs with Draymond, and you could see him just running around, handing off, getting into the key like he always does, looping to the 3-point line from the corner, and then having to make maybe a step back move or like a speed stop with a behind the back dribble. But you're right, he is as his cardio. We're talking about cardio. His cardio, if it wasn't for his ability, I wonder how many miles he runs, how many kilometers he runs a game. No. He is not just a spot-up shooter.
No.
Right? He is earning what he's getting, and I really do hope that young people appreciate that, because that's we've talked about it all night. That's what I used to do. I used to back slow motion reverse VHS tape the Jordan moves, and guys, and even Larry Bird was not an athlete, but the way he used pump fakes and spin moves and could get inside and up, and Kevin McHale's post moves back in the day, it was all just footwork, and it was stuff that kids can do. Yeah. And I know you're working on it with my son, and I'm working on it with my guys, and I'm preaching to them. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it on a regular basis. Why are we doing this if it's not happening in games? It's not happening because you're not putting it into your pickup games, or you're not playing enough to where you feel like you can take a chance and do a move and then make it your own. And hopefully, heck, maybe they're listening to this podcast. Who knows? And they'll take it to heart, because Steph Curry and these guys are they're not 6'9" with 7'5" wingspans. Yeah. These are guys that are as big as you, and and Dame's not much bigger than me, and they're fantastic. Yeah.
Well, like Draymond Green's the other one that Golden State I think is a perfect NBA team if kids are going to watch, because Draymond Green, look at how he impacts the game, and he doesn't score.
Agreed. Yeah.
And he's found a way, like when I play against players who can't shoot, they end up, if I'm guarding them, I just sag off, and then they don't do anything.
Exactly.
Draymond Green has gotten arguably his worst shooting season yet. And I would say his impact on the game is by far the best it's ever been.
Oh, Andrew, I got into this ridiculous back and forth on social media with some guy, because we were talking about point guards and Steph Curry, and this is before the Curry run, and I looked it up. For the purpose of Twitter, Instagram, and Draymond led during the heyday of those Warrior teams. Draymond was their leading assist getter, assister for at least 2 of the years. He was up around 7, 8, 9, and Curry was below him. So who was the facilitator on a lot of those teams? It was Draymond. They were running their offense a lot through Draymond, making the right skip pass, or the right dribble handoff, or the right and Draymond was a little more of a threat, at least to maybe drive. And he had 1 or 2 years of decent 3-point shooting.
Yeah, in 2015, 16, when they went on that 73 win season.
It was that the year.
That was his highest 3-point shooting.
Yeah, season. And respectable, right? Respectable. You had to guard him. And so, no, I'm fully aware that he has changed the game as a facilitator, and and next year, giving away my secrets for next year, we'll be running a smaller squad. just because we don't necessarily have a ton of guys over 6 feet tall. And so right now, the work we're doing is I'm trying to figure out who's going to be my small Jokic. Who's going to be able to be a guy that can pop to the high post and go dribble handoff, can catch and fake a handoff and then go one-on-one, or who can just pop to the three and make a 5-out? Because I like the way where the game is, but I don't want just 5 guys on the perimeter shooting threes or waiting for the ball. There's got to be more to it than that. And who's going to be that? And not only that, but it'll help with the pressing team that I'm going to try to have next year, because we don't have a ton of size. So it'll be fun. I don't know who that guy is yet. I'm trying to figure it out.
So maybe he is listening right now.
He might be listening, and I've got a few ideas, but who knows? How's FH looking next year? We should do a preseason podcast too.
So that will come up in the fall.
Okay, good.
We'll have Sean McCarron
a
back
little
in
high
the
school
fall.
preview.
White Horse high school basketball preview show.
No, that would be a lot of fun.
We'll bring Paul Mackin. We'll have all three high school representatives.
Yeah. Oh, unless he's taking his year off, he might be away
that's
for.
right.
I think he's taking his year off, so someone else will be.
So
in there
let's figure out who the PC representation will be. And then,
anyways, no, that was super fun, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here and being on this, and we'll have to have you back again.
Awesome.
Multiple times, probably every second guest will be you. Every
second. Dog hoops, college, and
exactly.
all of the above. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.